What's up, rockers? What's happening? Diddle it, diddle it, diddle it. You know what I'm talking about. Look at that thing. Isn't that fun? I had to find one of these because it's just cool. Interesting thing that they did on this. For those that don't, this is the new EVH 78. Obviously not the $25,000 one, right? The one that they just recently brought out with the stock bridge and all that good stuff. So, but one of the really interesting things is this doesn't have the neck on it like the red and white and black striped one. I'm just diving right in today, by the way. It's got a different neck, and the neck is basically identical to that one that I used in the pickup video, which was made by Lock. So I'm going to say that the neck on the $25,000 78 that they brought out a number of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, something like that, the neck on that guitar must have been copied off the original, and then Lock must have gotten a hold of one to kind of digitize or copy that neck, because this is the same as the one on the Lock. Like, it feels the exact same profile. It's really funny. It's wider, and it's just kind of a wide, I don't know how to describe it really. It's not a D, but it's not really a C either. It's somewhere in between. And they did the nut really great on this one, so it's cool. I actually have it staying. I watched Chip's video. They brought out a video on how Eddie used to string these, and there was aspects of it I did not understand. So for anybody that watched it, that guy's amazing, by the way. He set up my EVH Wolfgang once, and it was unbelievable, his setup work. But anyways, he was talking about twisting the ball end in the back and holding it while you're stringing, and I was like, I don't understand that. Like, you get to a certain tension in the ball end, just you let it go, and then it swings around anyway in the block. So I didn't get that aspect of his video, but I did the best I could. And I also couldn't wind the strings quite like he was saying, because there just didn't seem to be enough tension in the nut for a couple of them. But I did sort of follow it and try and keep the break as minimal as possible over the nut for every single string. I put some 3-in-1 oil in the nut, and then I tuned like he said. And when you do that, it actually stays pretty. I don't know if I've got a pick here. Here's one. It's like, I would have to tune here really quick, but I'm just going to see if I can show you at least kind of. Okay. No, you can't see this because the camera's so high, but now if I tune that, it's going to go flat. See, that's going sharp. I had it better the other day. Not bad right now. Pretty good. But now if I bend, the G's real flat now, but as soon as you do this, it's back. So it works really good, actually. Like, you just have to do a whammy bar dive every single time that you bend a string, which I guess you used to do. I mean, you can get away with it for a couple chords, but that would explain a big part of how, at least in the early days, he developed his style, and there was a lot of whammy bar going on, because it's like, well, you can use the bar. That brings you into tune. Every time you drop the bar, it brings it back to a set place. Then when you bend a string, you're going to be out. So you play a solo, bend strings, follow with a whammy bar drop, and now you're back in tune. And it's kind of, I guess you could kind of, get very used to sort of building a style around that. And that's why, at the end of every bend a bunch of strings, do whatever, do a dive bomb. Now you're back in tune. I was like, invention and necessity breeds what's the phrase? Anyways, I don't know, but it's just kind of interesting. Anyway, there you go. What a fun guitar. Really, really, really fun. I'm such a nerd for all things EVH. How often would you pan a 57 and 121? You're actually saying a different thing, Todd. Like, so you're talking about Randy Rhoads, that he apparently panned his solos triple tracked. So I would assume that would be one take and then another take and then another take, kind of panned like that, tripled. So it's not necessarily panning the mics. I mean, they could have done that, but I really doubt there was like two mics on the cab and then he was panning maybe. I mean, I never thought of it that way. It would just seem to me that you would, pan a solo 30% left, pan it center, pan it 30% right, that kind of thing, each take. I think that's what they mean when they say that, solos are panned. I'm not 100% sure about that, but that's kind of what I would do if I was triple tracking, what I have done before, where you just get this larger than life sound and they're not exactly the same each take. So you get a big stereo image. Now, with that said, you can, the more common thing, John Suhr asked me about a Journey song a couple weeks ago. And he was like, what do you think of this? Is he playing a Strat on this? And I went and listened to it. It was an old Journey song off Infinity or something, I think. And I was listening to the solo and it was really cool. But the main thing I noticed was it's like, yeah, that's probably a Strat. But not only that, there's a close mic here and a far mic here. And you can hear that, that the room mic, and you could even I can turn off my speakers in here and just listen to one or the other. And I was like, I shut one off and listen. I was like, yeah, that's total close mic. And then this one is sounds more like a U67, 4 feet back from a cabinet kind of thing with more room. And so that is something that people used to do a little bit, I think, where you'd hear, mics panned like that. You can pan if they're phase lined and everything, you can pan mics out, but it's still a mono guitar sound. So if you don't have any kind of distance between the microphones, you won't really get that much bigger of a sound in my experience. The only way to do that is by doubling. Does that make sense? It just sort of sounds like a brighter version on one side and then a little darker, but it's still mono if they're phase aligned and everything. You're not going to get a wide stereo spread when you take two mics, unless they're not phase aligned. So if you took two microphones and one was back 4 feet from a guitar cab and the other one was right on the cabinet, right, the sound is going to hit the far mic a little bit later. And if you blend them both while they're both panned, say center or both left or both right, you're actually going to get some comb filtering phasing kind of sound because the sound is reaching one of the mics at a different point. And so the wave is different. If you were to look at it in a DAW, you would see it going up and down and up, right? And then on the other one that's a little further away, it's probably going to be going kind of down and up and down at the same point. And that gives you some usually undesirable kind of comb filtering. Could be cool. It could be creatively cool if you want kind of a filtered sound. Sounds like you're filtering. But if you take those two mics and you pan them, and as long as you're listening in stereo, it could sound cool because now you're not hearing, it's only when you bring them together that you hear that comb filtering phasing thing, really. The only problem with doing that as a creative decision is if anybody ever listens to your song in mono, your guitar is going to sound weird. So generally people don't do that much. They like to phase align things, in my experience anyway, just because if anything collapses to mono weird, that's not good. So, it's an interesting trick though that you can do. I'm getting way into your topic here. I'm giving you the full value for your super chat. An interesting thing you can do live on a combo. You could take one mic on the front and then another mic on the back of an amp. And normally, if you do that, when one microphone's pointing one way at a speaker, and then the other one, say, in the back of a combo, around the back, the open back, combo, and they're both sort of pointed at one another with the combo in the middle, right? You're going to get serious phase cancellation if you were to mix those two mics together. It'll be very out of phase when you've got, just like if you mic a snare drum from the top and the bottom, they're going to be out of phase and the sound's going to get kind of small. But then you flip the phase on one of them and it'll sound right. And that's a common, if you ever see an under snare mic and a top snare mic, you've got to flip the phase or your snare is going to sound like crap. But together, blended, that'll be cool as long as you flip one of the phases. Okay, so same thing with a combo. Mic on the front, mic on the back. You're going to have to flip the phase on one of them. It'll sound cool and you can blend in the back, which generally has it gives it kind of just more realistic in the room sound. I find when you mic a combo like that, when you hear the back of it, it's like, oh, it's got a totally different sound. It's kind of darker and more, I don't know, just more of that, just the air coming out of the back of the amp without that direct, more fizz in the front, really. So it can sound really cool, but you're going to want to flip that phase. Now, I met a sound engineer that live actually would not flip the phase, but he would hard pan the two mics in the PA. And it's one of the coolest live guitar sounds I can remember hearing in a long time. It's this band called Group Love, and they were playing at the Wiltern. And the guy had a little Fender combo. It was looked like a Champ or something. It was tiny, but the guitar sound in the PA was awesome. And I was like, what are you doing with that little, I can see his little combo up there. And he's like, I'm micing the front and the back, and then I'm hard panning them, but I don't flip the phase. It's like, oh, okay. So that was really interesting, because then you do get this big stereo picture, much like I said, if you have a mic close and then a mic further back, and then you pan them out, like in the Journey song, you'll get an interesting sound. A real extreme example of that would be front mic, back mic, hard panned, even more extreme than two on the front and one distant. So some interesting stuff there. Just techniques. Yeah. What's going on? What are you guys talking about? Lauren says that's where those little mic robots are great. Yeah, I have one of those just for one of my mics, and it's amazing. For my 57, I have a Dynamount, the X2R or something it's called. I've done a video on it. It's like, so the mic sits on a kind of X and Y axis, and you can move it around in and out. You can even rotate the mic on the cab so that you can get more sort of the off axis to the cone or on axis. I love that thing, and honestly, it's one of the best things you can do if you've got a studio with a real, or even if it's not a cabinet room, even if it's just a closet and your cabinet's in there. But almost especially, actually, if it's hard to get to the mic, it's really cool to be able to, from your computer, sit there and move the microphone. And you get an app basically on the computer, and you can move it around as you're sitting there listening in front of the DAW, which is incredible. It's just like amazing how much of a difference it makes in the sound. So that's it. That is one thing about guitar demos and pedal demos and stuff like that. Like, you got to take everything with somewhat of a grain of salt, even mine, because when I move the microphone around on a cabinet, the sound changes a lot. So if you're hearing it and you go, oh, it's kind of bright. I mean, I could literally get in there and rotate the 57 like off axis just a little bit, and you'd be like, oh yeah, there it is. It's such and there's no way around that. I mean, a recorded guitar sound just is, that's how it sounds. I guess there's something to be said for in the room sounds, like, oh, just like a off, but it doesn't sound right to me when I record a cabinet like that either. It doesn't sound like I can tell what it sounds like. I want to hear what it sounds like on a microphone, because I'm just so used to hearing that. And that's like every record we've ever listened to that's ever been made is basically a close mic'd guitar sound of some sort. Pretty rare that there's a record where the mic is way back from the cabinet and it's a distant mic. And so I'm just, that's our reference for like most classic recordings is close mics. So there's no way around it. It is just part of how it is. But anyways, blah, 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 blah. Some great new stuff coming out. I did a video for the orange pedals that I put out yesterday. Those are fun. The vintage pedals, the phaser's really gooey sounding. The compressor's really nice. Got a great kind of hard clamped, aggressive compression. So if you guys haven't seen that, check out the video on the orange pedals. That was fun to do. They call it their vintage pedal line. Yeah. Simto says, same with speakers and cabinets, massive change in sounds by changing them. Huge. The biggest, bigger than the guitar and the amp, I would venture, is the overall filter and EQ provided by the cabinet and the speakers in it. It's the biggest change, you know. It's such a big change. The difference between a 212 open back with Celestian Blues and a 410 open back with, you know, whatever the P10 or whatever 10-inch, you know, like a basement cabinet. It's massive. Like there's no, it's like two completely different guitar sounds, even with everything else staying the same. So the cabinet is a really, really big deal in the speakers. Ralph says, thanks for the suggestion on the Axe Effects BE model. Built my presets with it. They sound awesome. Cool. Yeah, maybe you kind of like used like one preset and not too many, like I was suggesting. Like just pick one kind of Marshall amp and one clean amp, and don't get too crazy with using different amps all the way around, you know, and it'll just be easier to get your head around, I find, generally. Yeah. What else have we got here? Just watched Norm's Rare Guitars gift a street musician a Murphy Lab Telly. Truly heartwarming. That's really nice. That's cool. I got my Norm shirt on right now. Yeah. Super chat there from Dan. Hey, Pete from Minnesota. How does the SLO pedal? That's right. That's the other video put out this week. Great pedal. How does it compare to the PT15 channel 2 and 3? Well, it's very SLO. So it's more lower mid centric. It's that, I call it coarse grain distortion, the SLO distortion, which it does really well. It's that big, fat, grindy, lower mid kind of sound. And whereas the PT15 is very Marshall, you know, it's got that more, it's not thinner. It's got a great, I mean, the PT15 has a killer fatter, you know, John doesn't really like thinner, veering on the thinner side of Marshall. He likes to keep the single notes fat, but there is this upper mid centric thing that happens on Marshalls that, I don't know, something about the mid-range, the way the tone stack and whatever else is done in a Soldano where it's shifted kind of lower, you know. And there's also kind of more, oh, we got some spam in the chat there. I'm sure it'll be taken care of here in seconds. But anyway, it's a really good pedal. The PT15, really enjoy it. Sorry, the SLO is what I meant, pedal. I also enjoy the PT15. I love my PT15. Oh, I gotta tell you guys too. I gotta talk about jamming with Paul Rogers the other day. A couple days ago, I was oh my god, it was so much fun. But so we gotta talk about. Don't let me forget to mention that. But what separates me from other? I can't say that I'm great, but other guitarists. Practice tips. You know, man, I just grew up listening to the Beatles, #1, and the Who. And those are my first influences, and from there, and the Beach Boys, and like, you know, just that really cool 60s music that's my home base. And then I went to hard rock after that. So it always for me comes back to melody and songs and emotion. And, you know, I got to see the Who last week. That was really fun. And, you know, when I watch them play, you know, 515 or that's my jam, you know, that stuff. It's just, you know, Behind Blue Eyes, or, you know, those songs mean so much to me. So melody and song structure and stuff. So if there's anything that makes me different, that was my core, and that's where I came from. And that you can't take that out of me. Just like, you know, I'm way, way, way more interested in that stuff than I am into guitar tricks or whatever. So, but I love playing guitar, and I love, you know, shreddy stuff too. So anyways, Darren says, but thank you for the nice compliment as well. I appreciate that. Just got an SLO 30 with 212 cab. The QC, it's fairly trebly even with the presence turned down. The QC, do you mean a quad cortex? Or the QC both are? Sorry, Dan, or Darren, I just don't understand the question. Should I back the treble off on the amp, or the QC both are low already? Explain a little bit more your rig to me in the chat, and then I'll see if I can help. I'm just not sure exactly what you're doing. What else have we got here? Those orange pedals are overpriced. Not sure they're what they're thinking, charging $250 for a mass-produced OD and a plain orange enclosure. Yeah, I didn't. I actually, to be honest, I haven't looked at the prices, so I wasn't aware of that. If they're 250, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm not really sure. What? Yeah, I don't know. I can't comment on the price. Pricing's chips and parts and everything else these days. It's expensive, so I don't know. Maybe the analog chip for the phaser or something's. I don't know. I really don't know. But you know, it's out of it's above my pay grade. What else? What else have we got here? Oh, I also put up a little video this week talking about the stupid comments. Speaking of the spam in the chat, stupid comments that come in on that are fake, that come in on my videos, that say text me on Telegram or let's chat on Telegram and all that. So just reiterating, that's BS, and just report them as spam and they're scammers. I watched a really interesting video this week on it where a guy actually went through the whole process of responding to one of them, because he was a fairly successful YouTuber guy, and he got a lot of that kind of spam. So he actually posed as oh, what's my prize? Because they always say win a prize, and they'll say, yeah, you've won this something or other, and we're going to ship it to you, and you'll have to pay for the shipping. That's all. Oh, okay. How do I do that? And they're like, cash or Venmo or something, Cash App, Venmo, something. And it's $120 for shipping for like a pedal or something that they're saying they're going to send you. It's insane. So it's just a scam where they're just trying to get money from you. So don't ever respond to them, and just kind of report them as spam if you see those. Pete Thorn _5, you've won a prize. You'll know if I'm giving something away or something. Can I help with stage fright? Absolutely. Watch the movie It Might Get Loud and try and embody the spirit of Jack White. That's what I really enjoyed his sort of candor and his whole approach in that movie, and how punk rock and sort of just attitude he is. And you get the sense that mistakes don't really matter to him. What's a mistake? Who cares? Like breaking a string or whatever. It's just, you just carry on. He's all attitude kind of. And I really appreciated that about him. And I got that from the show, from It Might Get Loud, that movie. And when you watch him in the movie, you just see his sort of passion and how he's not really afraid he's very primitive in his approach, sort of. And so I always find if I'm afraid on stage, I try and think about that, like his attitude or something, or somebody pick a different, Keith Moon or a Pete Townsend, or somebody that just obviously takes chances and goes for it. And you sort of find your rock and roll spirit animal, and then just get in that mode. That's what I do. I just think about them. Also, you just prepare enough where that that's not the problem. I know these parts. I've played them a million times. I can do them. So that's not if you can do that, so that when you get on stage, you're like, I don't, and you're like, no, I know this. It's in my muscle memory. So I'm good. So now you just change your headspace by just play a couple loud chords or something, and then, walk to the front of the stage, go like this, or do something to kind of like act as if until, and distract yourself, and connect with the other players on stage, and realize that, generally when you're on stage, it's a team. And if one person on the team is having a hard time that day, or, there's a gear problem, or just not feeling it or whatever, the rest of the team should have your back, and even if you were to stop playing for a second, it'd be okay, because the music will carry on. Right. So it's like, everybody's got your back, and the crowd doesn't really care. Also, the other thing is that I always say is the crowd they're there to help you, cheer you on. They're not there to, maybe that's the guitar stereotype, that how many guitar players does it take to screw in a light bulb? But generally speaking, people are there to have a good time. So they got your back. They're like, yeah, man, let's party. Cool. And they're like, and you don't have to do much. Like, you don't have to do some shred Paganini virtuoso stuff. You can get up there and bend a note and raise your arm up in the air and vibrato, and people will go do a pick scrape, and everybody's happy generally. So, it's all about just kind of like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be fun. They're there to have fun. I'm here to have fun. Let's have fun together in a cyclical kind of, vibe. And then if you can do that, and then a couple moments happen, and the bass player does something funny, and band's cooking, everybody sounds good or whatever, singer cracks a joke, and then you're out of that headspace. Oh, what was I worried about? I forgot. Everything's great, you know. So do I like the Verve Pipe? I do. We just did that tour with them with Fight for Fighting. So I just did 3 weeks with those guys out on the road all over the US. It was a good time. Really fun. This fella says, if you use the same mic above and below a snare or in front of and behind a combo amp a lot, you can make a Y cable with one side of the Y wired out of phase. This way you only take up one input for 2 mics. That's interesting. That's cool. I wonder if there's any kind of like loading on the pre or anything. And then the only thing is you can't balance them at a different level. But yeah, if you're on stage or something and you want to, do that, that could be a cool approach, I guess, I like to have individual control. Like if I am in a studio and I'm miking a snare, I generally don't have the bottom mic as loud as the top one. I don't like that much of the snares in the sound. I do it kind of like I do with a 57 and then another mic on a cabinet. The 57 is usually dominant, and I've got the other one 6 dB below or 8 dB below or something to bring it in for fullness. That's kind of what I do with a snare drum generally too. But anyways. Okay, let me see if I can find the God, there's a whole bunch of bullshit in the I gotta get rid of this guy. Block user. Error occurred. Ben must have done it already, but yeah, all that crap. Click the arrow to win a hooker. Okay, that's what it says. All right, that's amazing. Ben says they won't stop. That's weird. Well, and Ben's stressed. Ben says, "If me, they won't stop." Ben, don't get too stressed out about it. Everybody just avoid it. If there's any kind of crap, you know what to do. We can also try putting them in a timeout. Let's put them in a timeout. There we go. Todd says for stage fright, a small thing that he does, and he sees a lot of musicians do, is to make your area on the stage the same every night. If you're comfortable, then you may be less nervous. Yeah, actually, I would just go as far as to say anything you can do to make yourself comfortable. Be that, like a fan, lighting, a light on your set list, like all the little things you can do, a rug that you stand on that is the same every night that you bring with you on tour or those or to your gigs, So yeah, any of that kind of stuff that you can do. Gary Waters says secondhand hookers are new. We'll beat demo. You guys are the best. We'll beat demo the hooker. No, that's not going to happen. Ryan says, are the QC inputs and outputs buffered? Generally speaking, any kind of digital device like that is going to be, you can consider it buffered. That the input is going to be a buffered kind of thing. So yeah, crazy with the amount of crap in the chat. So sorry about that, guys. But what can we do? Bot attack. Yeah, it's just bots, right? Click the arrow to win a free truck. They're kind of, you can get all kinds of stuff today. Hookers, trucks. It's incredible. Yeah. All right. Any thoughts on the 20-watt Jet City amps? We've talked about this a little bit over the past couple of weeks. People have asked, what's a baby SLO sort of, or an inexpensive? And those are the ones, kind of the little 20-watt Jet City were pretty cool for that. And generally the consensus is, I think, that they're pretty good, that they're kind of neat. So yeah, I think pretty cool. Random question, but what cameras do you use? So my main one that I use here for what you always see me talking on and stuff is this thing. It's a Canon XA50, and you can see it's got a big condenser mic on the top that I mounted on there with an arm. This is a really cool camera that basically is like a bottom level pro video camera. So I just got to stand. So it's like a, the sort of the cheaper end of what would be considered a professional video camera. So a lot of people use the DSLR or whatever style cameras for, Sony A7 Mark IIIs and things like that, or Canon, but the more DSLR style, and they use those. I just really like having a dedicated video camera. And the other thing that this thing has that I like about it is this. See the XLR inputs? So it has a built-in stereo mic, and then it's got 2 channels of XLR. So it's basically a 4-channel recorder, this camera. So I could go to something like a trade show like NAMM or something, bring that camera. I could have a shotgun mic mounted on the top instead of this one that I've got here, which is cumbersome, but it works fine when it's stationary. And then I could have a second mic going with like a 57 or something. So I could like mic a cabinet at like a trade show or something. So I could have a handheld and a mic on a cabinet. It records 4 channels. It records the internal microphones, stereo, left and right, and then the 2 other mic pre's. It's got built-in mic pre's with like, little rotary controls. So it's really cool. It's a really good camera, and I like it. It's no problems. It's just, it's big, but it's for here, I was like, it's going to be stationary. It's going to be sitting here. I'm never going to move it, really, generally speaking, except if I go do, like I say, I'd have a helper if I went and did that to a trade show or something. Or to do a rig rundown or something. I wish I had it years ago, like when I did the Steve Stevens rig rundown. That was at Mate's, close to here, but I could take something like that and one of my, portable light and stuff, and I'd have a better setup for. So I invested money during the pandemic in this stuff. Also the light, I have the lighting I have in here is a bigger deal than the cameras. I would say. So I'll show you what this thing looks like that you never see. Just take a picture of it here because lights are so important. See that giant light? That's what's on me, while I'm sitting here in front of my computer. So looks like that. So it's a big giant pro, light with a diffuser on it. I would see those in, Rick Beato's videos or Ola, you see these great big diffusers on their lighting and stuff. And I was like, I guess I got to get that if I want to look like that. And then I got one and it improved so much. I mean, you can see it's just like it's a big asset. Lighting's everything. You can basically take good video on on iPhones if you have proper lighting. So, did you follow that tone matched IR that is going on in the Helix community? Did you try such presets with tone matched IRs? It should be a method how you can capture amps with the Helix. I haven't done that. No. Tone matching IRs is basically like the old tone match on the Axe effects, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, where you can go through and basically capture the EQ. So whereas the Axe effects never had like the Kemper style profiling, they'd have had the tone match thing for a long time where, let's say you want to copy a plexi sound. Well, now you set up a plexi in your 50 watt or 100 watt plexi or whatever in your Axe effects, bring up the tone match block, and then you can feed it audio of the recorded sound that you kind of want it to sound like, say, a soloed, Van Halen or something, the chords at the beginning of You Really Got Me or something, right? And then, you pull up your preset that's sort of similar, like a high gain Marshall, and it listens to both those, and then it'll make an EQ curve based on that matches to the recording. So I assume it's something like that you're that you're talking about. So that's been going on for a little while. I did a demo of that, God, probably over 10 years ago on the tone match block, where I tried to tone match the SL68. I should go back and listen to it, actually see how close it is. But yeah. Anyway, what else we got here? Let's see. So I wonder, the fellow that was having the issue with the SLO and a QC, I wanted to answer that question, but I'm just not seeing it in the chat. So if you guys see it, just let me know what he was, because I feel bad. He sent me a super chat and then I wasn't really able to help him, I don't think. So, okay. Wanted to order a Sir PT SIG HSS, but with a larger neck. My dealer told me Sir won't make changes. Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So you'd have to spec a guitar like mine. A hum single, but the neck's not small. I mean, it's a 1 and was it 6/8/7? It's a bigger neck than was on my other guitar. So it's a nice 60s kind of, neck that's got a slightly wider than most of the guitars that Sir makes. So maybe you'd be all right with it. But no, the thing about a a Sig guitar is that it's a set spec. It's why they can actually make them for a price that's not exorbitantly, like the price of my signature guitar is not as much as most of their custom orders guitars will be. And that's why, because anytime they got a custom order something, and every little detail has to be figured out, that guitar takes longer to build. And it's just, if it's a Pete Thorn model, it's like, well, there's a spec, there's a spec, there's a spec, do it. Right. And then you can just make a bunch of them and it's easier, so it's more like it's actually easier to make the signature models than it is any other custom builds, which kind of makes sense when you think about it. And that's why, and it's just kind of also, the thing about the signature models is like what happens if you resell it, and then it's like doesn't have the right neck profile. It's like, oh, it's a Pete Thorn signature, but wait a minute, this neck is huge. And it's like, so that would be weird, right? That's why, you can't get an Ibanez Steve Vai gem without the neck that he wants or whatever, because it's like, I mean, they're not a custom guitar company anyway, I guess, but you know what I'm saying. It's just it's part of a signature model. When you get it, that's the spec. So, but you can order a similar guitar. You could order a standard. It won't have my pick guard on it. But you could get a hum single standard that in a color scheme that's really similar to mine, with a black headstock and an ebony board. The only visible difference, I guess, would be the pick guard, and you could spec it out, but that's okay, because that separates my model from the rest of the line. So okay, shush your sector. What else? There's a super chat there. I'm gonna grab that in a second. About an afterneath pedal based on the owner designer who connected with me from his personality. Do you think this approach is valid? Sure. Yeah, John. I mean, if you appreciate someone's, demeanor and their, if you kind of get with her, it's like, yeah, this person seems kind of cool. And, I want to support them. And it seems like to be honest, it was like, Sir, one of the reasons that it was John, and the way that he, his personality, like his sort of obsession with detail and with quality, that really appealed to me, because I like quality stuff. I like things that are well made and precision engineered, and with down to really tight tolerances and stuff. And I could sense that about him, that he really cared about that stuff. So I was like, yeah, I want to, that makes sense. So to support companies like that, I think. Would be cool if you would review pay presets for digital multi-effects amp modeler sometimes. You mean like the packages that people make? I mean, they'd have to contact me and ask me to do it, and kind of hire me to do it, because there's the reality is there's a ton of stuff to do all the time when you're an independent guy like me. I can only make a couple videos a week, but when you think about the amount of guitar stuff that comes out, I can basically put out 2 a week. That's it. That's all I got in me. And it's like, some weeks it's 1, depending on so, to just make a video for fun, if I'm doing that, it has to be like the Eddie Van Halen pickup video or something, or some sort of labor of love that's like, yeah, this will be really fun. Or an Amps in the Zone on, I got to do the AC30s one or whatever, because that's a labor of love and something where you just want to make something that's like almost like curation or something of like these classic designs, and you guys like them and I like them too. I love doing it. So that's fun. But if it's for a product, a signature, a bunch of 10 presets that somebody made for a Helix, I'm not going to do that unless somebody hires me to do it. Ryan says, do you prefer to use your captures over the built-in models in the QC? Generally, I use my captures. Yeah, I do like the models though. They're cool, but yeah, you have much more real-time control over the models. Thanks for the super chat, Ryan. Yeah, exactly. That's why I like, because one of the things I really like about the Quad Cortex is that I can do that. I can capture. I basically like my amps, so that's what I want to do, is capture the amps. When I went out with Five for Fighting recently, the amp I used to use with Five for Fighting back in, so I toured with them like in 2001 and 2002, so ages ago. And the amp I used was one of these. It was a Top Hat King Royale combo, but that was the amp. It's basically a boutique AC30, and I loved the sound. And recently, a couple years ago, I found one again, and now I have it one again, because it's just a great It's a great AC30 is what it is. And you know, without having to pay the vintage AC30 price. So when I went to do the Fight for Fighting tour, I thought only stands to reason that I should maybe, since you know I'm maybe gonna because of restrictions and stuff and some fly dates and things, I thought I'm gonna have to either rent gear or you know just bring a pedal board on some of these and end up with whatever amp, or I can try doing the capture thing in the Quad Cortex and come up with a hybrid kind of rig and bring that. That's what I did. I went at it that way and tried it, and I put the AC30, basically the top hat, in the quad, captured it, dialed up some sounds. I was like, this sounds great. It sounds awesome. Sounds great through cab. Sounds great with the IRs. So I used the stock. I think I used the blues going to the PA, the like the 212 Vox 65 cab or whatever that's in the unit. But I used it coupled with the, you know, a direct head model that I made, or profile or whatever they call it, capture, I guess, of the top hat. So kind of a hybrid of their speaker sim with that, and it sounded amazing. And then even we would play a Queen song at the end for the encore, and I would hit it with a treble booster, a 65, you know, real germanium treble booster, and it sounded amazing for that. For the Queen, it was like this sound is like it's like so stoked on the Queen sound, actually, how good it sounded. So yeah. Now, could I have just used one of the AC models built in? Sure, yeah, and I probably could have gotten a really close and good sound, you know, with the built-in. But it's just neat having, if you got an amp you love, you can put it in there, and they're very close, as anybody that's got a Quad Cortex will attest to. I think it's really, really, really good. You know, exactly the same, not exactly, you know, but close enough that everybody comes to the show and has a good time, and the promoter pays, and everybody goes home happy. Can you let us know if you use buffer pedals and where in the chain? So on my board, I have the Friedman buffer bay, which is basically a little patch bay with a built-in Cornish style buffer. That's on all the time, especially if I'm using a cable. And that's the first thing that gets hit. The guitar goes straight into the buffer bay. So 20-foot cable coming out of the guitar into the buffer bay, and that's where the buffer happens. And so kind of buffered from there, basically. But I think my switcher, my Musicom has a buffer in it as well, and it's on, I do believe, so further on down the chain. So kind of one at the beginning, one at the end, you know. There's a thing with certain pedals, and I haven't had this problem with this rig, with my pedal board for the last 5 years, but certain pedals, if you put like I think it was like a Phase 90 or something else, and it can get weird when you turn on a pedal and then there's something else down chain. I'd have to ask Friedman about this, but it can change the impedance. You know, you can kind of, by adding a pedal down the chain, change the impedance, and then you're not driving the output of the board quite right. And then it sounds weird going to the amp and all that. So I don't know enough about it to know, but to me, it's like, well, why not have one at the beginning of the pedal board and at the end of the pedal board? And then you're kind of cool coming out of, you know what I mean? I think, and I think that's what's going on my board, generally speaking. Almost as important, if you do any kind of 4 cable, having a properly buffered effects loop is a big deal. And if you don't have a properly buffered effects loop and you're using an effect loop on an amp, because they're not all created equal, that's for sure, and you patch in something and it sounds weird, you know, try buffering, like either the send coming out of the loop or the return, or both. You know, you might need a buffer there if your loop is poorly designed. And you know, most of them are. It's a big deal putting a loop in an amp, you know, where you're, you know, think about it, you know, those high voltage tube stuff going on. It's awesome, nice hot level inside coming out of the preamp of the amp. Now you got to like pad it way down and send that signal out to some unknown effect or multiple effects, and then come all the way back through a cable. Sometimes it's going all the way out to someone's pedal board and back again, you know, 20 feet each way, 40 feet of cable with who knows what in the middle, then gain it back up, right, on the return. So effects loops can really affect your sound, you know, and to make a good sounding loop, which Sir does, you know, Sir's loop, he spends a lot of time on making sure the loop is cool and buffered properly, so that the sound is the same when you've got your, you know, stuff patched in. So buffers in front, buffers in the loop, important stuff to consider. If you're ever wondering, you know, just break your sound down to nothing. Plug the guitar into the amp. Listen, you know, maybe record. Now start putting things in line, you know, your pedal board, If you start hearing things getting duller or, like darker, okay, now you've got some true bypass stuff going on. You're just adding capacitance and cables. If you're starting to get weird sounds, like actual, like any kind of loss where it sounds like now there's maybe like a, weird impedance thing going on or something where things are happening where, it's long story short, yeah, buffer can benefit. It's just where in the chain that it should come and stuff. So keep in mind too, I use a loop switcher on my board, which is a big deal because it's like, you go into the loop switcher and then you come out of the loop switcher and go to the amp. Well, technically, the only thing you're running into is the input electronics of that switcher and the output of that switcher in that case. All your pedals and everything then exist in loops on the switcher, and nothing's in line. You only are getting it in line when you're switching in a loop. And good switchers, be it the Gig Rig or, Musicom Lab or the Boss or whatever, you say, proper buffers all the way through the chain so that everything's, staying hot and nice and true is important. Did I miss any super chatties or anything? I don't know. Let's see. What else we got here? Okay, Ryan says Paul Rogers, love to hear the goodies. So yeah, and there comes another super chat. So yeah, jammed with Paul Rogers, some of the classics that you might expect, and also some other fun stuff. It was really, really, really fun. He sings, I just have to say, he's such a nice guy, and his wife was just lovely as well. And man, his voice, I had to say after one of our jams, I said, can I just say how much fun this is right now? So this is the most fun I've had in months, just getting to play some of those tunes with him. And he was such a pleasure and like so great. He still sings like just everything original keys. And he just, it looks like he's having a great time. And I think he really had fun, and I had fun as well. So anyways, next week, it's sold out now, but Rock the Plaza in Palm Springs, we're doing a benefit show for an old theater in Palm Springs called the Plaza Theater. And it's sold out. So the benefit's done really smashingly well. They've raised a bunch of money to renovate the theater and kind of bring it back to life. So I'm interested to see what the theater looks like, because evidently it needs renovation, but we're going to play a show in it anyway. So it'll actually be kind of interesting to play a show there and in the state it's in, and then maybe, look at it a couple of years from now and see what it looks like. So it should be a lot of fun. Yeah. And then once again, oh boy, Pete, would it be possible to get your new signature with a different neck profile? No. Yeah, we were talking about that. Can't do that. Can you demo the Audio Assault's 5150 amp sim? It's only $5. Insane price. You don't need me to demo it if it's $5. Just get it. See if you like it. That's what I say. $5. It's like you're going to buy a coffee later today that costs that much, or a cider. It'll buy you half a cider at your favorite bar. Half a glass, not even. It'll buy you a third of a glass of wine. A third of a margarita. At least that's California prices. Do you think there's space for new YouTubers doing gear-related stuff? Gear-related stuff? I don't know. I mean, maybe. It depends on your spin on it, man. It's all about the way that that you approach it. If it's anything like what I'm doing or anything like what other guys that are already out there doing, probably not, But I've seen like one guy that's made inroads lately and does really great is Michael Nielsen. So he did a video for the SLO pedal this week. He's tight with the Friedman guys and stuff. So if you watch his videos, Michael's a knowledgeable guy. He's a really nice guy. He makes great videos. He took it really seriously, and I think his videos are doing quite well. So he's one that recently I think he's been doing it for a number of years, but not as long as I have. Maybe kind of I've seen him do it for like the last 5 years, something like that. But yeah, I mean, his channel's done quite well, and it's by all accounts, a success for him. So you have to look at people like that and go, well, what's Michael doing that's different? Or what? You can tell that he's passionate about it. That's one thing. He's really into he's a studio guy. He's a producer, mixer, I think, and does, he's working in the music business. So he's good at that. He's good at it. He's going to get good sounds. He takes quality seriously. So he does a good job at it. And you kind of have to do it like that, or uh, you know, there's not a lot of point. I think you have to kind of do it on that level, and then you can be successful at it. Now, on that level could be a completely different approach, but it just has to be good. So, you've got everyone from, Gear Man Dude. It was like, the way he used to do stuff with his personality, and the people would, because his videos were entertaining. Fuzzbox Girl, she had a whole approach. The different YouTubers that have done this kind of stuff over the years. It's just you got to have your own identity, just like a television show or a late night talk show. The different hosts, they've got their different segments they do. They got their different sort of personalities, and people will tune into one or the other that they might prefer. So it's like that. Can't be a clone of anything else. I've seen people, God bless them, but I've seen people that basically copy my videos. Like where they like say the same things, welcome to my studio. I don't know why I say that all the time. Hey, welcome to the studio, but it's just like, just something that I started doing. And then like, I just say it all the time without even thinking about it. But then I've seen other people say it and I go, wait a minute, that's what I say. Can't come up with something else, do your own thing. And then they'll follow other similar things about the format of my videos. Not that they don't make good videos, but it's like do your own thing, do your own thing with it and be different. And then you've got a shot at it. That's what I think. Some super chats are coffee fun, says T-Top. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. I appreciate that. And the Queen you did was killer. Thanks, man. Yeah, the Queen was fun playing on the Fight for Fighting tour. It's funny because we would get the crowd to sing the whole middle of Bohemian Rhapsody. And I heard a crew guy, like a local crew guy, after one of the shows go like, he was like a rigger guy or something. He was grumbling to one of the other guys. He goes, well, it's a good thing the audience knew how to sing the middle. Kind of like bagging on us because we just wouldn't do it. We would I'd go, I need to pick. Can't do this with my fingers, but I'd go, like, right. I would play all the chords, so that people kind of follow, and John would start, but so see the little to the meadow of a man. Right, I would do that, and then the crowd would kind of sing along, and it worked. I was like, is this gonna work? And then we did it the first night, and it was hilarious. It was like totally fun, but it was definitely the budget version, but fun. Everybody seemed to like it. Anyway, any EQ you would cut in your live tone? I high shelf at 8K. It's so dependent on your rig and your speakers and everything, and what you want to hear. I never do anything like that. That what you're doing at 8K, Chris Lord Alge on a lot of like Green Day or whatever, his rock guitars. If you look at his SSL like kind of rock EQ preset on his SSL signature, or he doesn't have a signature, but he did presets for like, for I guess the Waves SSL or something. I can't remember, but the Chris Lord Alge preset anyway, 8K, high shelving band, cranked up like 10 dB. So you're doing the exact opposite. I tend to not do stuff like that. I mean, my amp, and the speakers I choose and everything, I've almost got my EQs on 5 on my amp. The PT15, I run the bass just a little below noon, mids just a little above, and treble just a little above. And if that amp is plugged into my cabinet with my speakers and everything, it's like, yep, I'm gonna turn it on. That sounds great. That's what I want to hear. So much of it now is down to the mic and where it's placed on the front, and you will find a lot of times guys will put, like sound guys will put the mic further out towards the edge of the speaker than you might see in the studio. That's pretty common, I find, for whatever reason. With live sound, they want to get out into the paper a little bit more and away from the cone. Just sounds better through most PAs or whatever. But if you're finding that you got too much high end, you can literally probably just move the microphone. If it's stuff you're hearing on stage, I mean, maybe it's down to, I just don't do that much. Like using where do you put the graph? Is it a graphic that you use, or parametric or something? And do you put it in the loop of your amp or something? Or I just wonder, or what your rig is, you know? Or maybe you're doing it in a modeler. Stealth Parrot was asking about which Michael. Yeah, sorry, Michael Nielsen's channel. Yeah, I believe it's called Big. Is it called Big Hairy Guitars? Yeah, that's who I was talking about as this kind of successful, you know, channel. Somebody that's fairly recent got into it. Excuse me. Rob says, on your demos, are you applying mastering plugins to the initial session or bounce out and master separately? Oh, no, I just put them on the strip in the initial session. Somebody was asking me about this, like, how much compression do you use on your channels and stuff? It's like when I do a song for a video, I put stuff on the master bus, like generally speaking, it's like an SSL bus compressor. And then I use a thing called Waves Mixcentric after that, which just does a little bit of multi-band compression, probably some EQ and stuff. And I turn it up just a little bit to add a little polishing to the sound. And then I use a limiter after that, BX Master Desk from Brainworks. That's how the song is done. Now, when I go to do the individual parts in one of my demo videos where you're just hearing the tracks soloed out, all that stuff is gone, and I don't have anything on the tracks generally. So when you're hearing the end of, you know, that stuff is just because you need some stuff to glue a bunch of tracks, drums, bass, guitars, all kinds of different stuff together and make it sound like it's not sort of a muddy mess. You have to do a little bit. You just have to, you know, or otherwise it sound like, oh, these mixes don't sound very good. So we can't have that. So the song, I'll put the stuff on the bus, but then I want you to hear the raw tracks of the individual tones in the song, and you'll, you know, when those are soloed out, yeah, there's nothing really going on there. But that wasn't really your question, but I just wanted to clarify it anyway while we were sort of on the subject. Thank you for the super chat there, Rob. Are you going to the baked potato show that Lukather is doing? Well, you're reminding me. I will contact my old friend Jorgen Carlson and see if I can go to that. It'll be fun. Brother. Oh, what else? What else? What else? You could say welcome to my lair, followed by a maniacal laugh. Welcome to my lair. Ah, ha, 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 ha. Like that? That'd be cool, actually. I should start a second channel and just do that. Wear like a Count Dracula costume. Sure, why not? Am I the only person that owns guitars and doesn't carry a pick in my pocket? I often don't have one. Like, I happen to have one today, but often I'll be like, what kind of guitar player am I? I didn't put any picks in my pocket this morning when I left the house. I have 4 pairs of glasses sitting on my desk here. I'm not sure why. Let's put on one. Okay. Michael's video is one of the first out. Is that for a product? Likely reason he has so many views. For me, that first day I watched his and another one, and then none since. Well, there you go. There's something to be said for putting out videos first. Yeah, his videos are really good, and he generally gets hired by companies to make them, and you'll see him do a lot of stuff for Friedman and Boutique Amp. So, and you know, he works closely with those guys. So, yeah. How's the EVH 78, 75? EVH was playing his Explorer in 75, and it was white. How's it striped? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. You can see it's kind of like, it looks like it's, or maybe you can't see. It's slightly relict. A little bit of the, you know, not exactly like the original or anything, but it's cool. I love this thing, actually. It's fun. Come on. Super fun. How can it not be fun? Fender. Made in Mexico. It's fun. Good times. Good times. EVH. What else? There was a magical performance of Brian May during solo version of Love My Life, and the audience sings. Is that from the Taylor Hawkins tribute? Probably, right? Because he did it there and it was brilliant. Yeah. Okay, what else we got here? Let's see. My small board has had a DD5 and a Polara reverb. Do you think I could replace both with the Halo? Well, the halo isn't exactly a reverb, but it kind of does what a reverb does. If you need a specific reverb sound, you know, like a black hole or a true spring or something, the halo is not going to do that. But it does add an ambience to your sound. That's its own thing. That's really cool. I just went like this. That's its own thing. It adds an ambience to your sound. That's its own thing. Shall we just try glasses on while we do the show? Here, check these out. I got these in. These are hard to find. I had to get them. I was in London, and they're big. The big size aviators with slightly blue tinted lenses and chrome frames. Anytime I see aviators with chrome frames, I'm like, I'll take them. All right, it's too hard to see with those on right now. So let's go back to these just for fun. I'm on Vincent's track 5 coffee right now, and I'm crazy because it's got me wired. This is the Demolition Dark Blend, which is going to put hair on your chest. It's crazy. I think I prefer the Route 59 blend. Track 5 coffee, Route 59. But this is good. It's good. It's just like, Jesus, Murphy. They made that little tiny front right pocket in a pair of jeans specifically for picks. That's where mine go since the 80s. Does that new EVH black and white play good and stay in tune when using the trim? I was showing that at the beginning, Braxall. It actually does stay in tune pretty good. That's pretty good. But now it's out. But now if I go and I dunk the bar, it's in. So I set it up with the Eddie, you know, with the where I did the stuff on the bridge. That seems to help. Where with the screws, so I literally took the springs out, had no strings, and then the individual 6 screws. And this maybe is the biggest factor. Maybe, I don't know, or one of the big factors. But the two, so you back all the screws out. You bring the outside ones down until they start to lift the bridge up a little bit. Now you just back it out a quarter turn. Do it on the other side. Same thing. Lifts the bridge a little bit. Bring it back down. Back it out a quarter turn. The middle ones, you do it and you back them out a half turn. So the 2 outside screws are a quarter turn. The middle ones are a half turn. That I followed to the T in the chip video. And then I set the springs in the back so that there's only 2 springs. And I set it so that, you know, on a hard bend, if I'm doing a hard double stop bend, you'll start to see the bridge just start to lift up a little bit. So that's how it's set. And then there's 3-in-1 oil in the nut. And I tried to follow the other instructions, but they were kind of hard to understand. But I just kind of did my own thing as far as the wrapping up, wrapping down, and making sure there was just enough tension in the nut to not have the strings rattling around or not have a good open note tone, you know, but no more tension than that, so that there's not more downward tension on the nut than necessary. And all that, yeah, it's just what you have to do when you set it up that way. You just dunk the bar, tune everything up, dunk the bar, tune it all up. And then like, okay, now you're in tune. You can dunk the bar, you're in tune. Great. You bend the string, you're out of tune. And it's like, then you got to dunk the bar every time you bend. And that's the way Ed used to do it, evidently. And it works as I just showed, you know, pretty good. That's probably about as in tune. I mean, as I was dunking it right now, as he ever was, I think, when I hear him playing that old guitar in '78, you know. So it's like, huh, interesting. Okay, what else have we got here? Let's see. It's 12:51. Okay, so how long have I been here for? An hour and 3 minutes. We're going to go another hour. PEQ in the loop of Synergy via module, parametric EQ. You're the fellow that does the cuts. Synergy via module, Legacy 412. So you're cutting 8 dB, or no, you're at 8K, you're cutting 6 dB or something. So that's interesting. Well, whatever gets you to your sound. I mean, if it sounds good to you and everybody's like, your guitar sounds cool, and you're like, my guitar sounds cool, then do it, you know. Boldly go forth. There's no rules. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to kind of move down in the chat here. And let's see. What else you guys talking about? Just reading through some of the comments here. You guys are talking about condoms for some reason. That's really weird. Have you ever played Beautiful Girls? Yeah, I did Beautiful Girls verbatim when I did that show with Mitch Malloy. And it was really fun. And I sang the background vocals. Oh, yeah, beautiful girls, and did all the riffs in the middle. And I did it exactly like the record. It was a bitch. I worked on it for like 2 months. All the riffs, you know, the random riffs that he just does off the cuff. But I copied the record down to the last one. Yeah, beautiful girls. Yeah. Did my best. Fun song. What a great riff. I haven't played it for a while, but so gotta swing it. Da-da-da-da. Okay, so this riff is so weird. It's so what is that, right? Which if you're leading with your second finger almost, and it's really hard to do, but right? It's so cool. But the rhythm, if you can learn that, it's like a big band, man, with horns, you know, doing shots. It's so cool. It's like, if you can play that and do it, and you know, the drummer's got to be good too, you know, but when you lock into that groove, oh my god, it's so cool. Really fun. Really fun. What else we got here? Guitar Smarts Podcast says, love your last album. Any plans for Pete Thorn 3? Well, my intention was to record some songs, an EP maybe, you know, not necessarily like a full thing, but I've talked to my friend who's a drummer about it, and maybe doing some stuff later in November or maybe early December. I would just want to spend a few days like knocking out a few bass and drums and guitar basics and then get a few tunes done. And if I could just set aside like 5 days to do that, I would be so stoked, you know, and finish them like quick. Just put like not even a week, like 5 days into it, you know, record the basics in 1 or 2 days and then finish the rest of the songs over the next couple, not a lot of overdubs, you know, knock it out and just do a 3-song EP. Yeah. So, yeah. Seems like a reasonable goal. All right. What else we got here? What is the video on the bridge setup? Oh, okay. So there's a Chip Ellis video on how to set up a traditional Fender bridge like Eddie did. Chip Ellis was works for EVH, and he was also he's like one of the head, you know, master tech guys there, I think. And Fender EVH. And he's a monster guitar tech. He set up my Wolfgang once. I actually went down to, it was kind of when Van Halen was doing a different kind of Truth. And I went and picked it up from him at Henson, where they were finishing recording a bunch of stuff. And he set it up there, which was really cool. And it was like, it was like this guitar, like I couldn't believe how good it was set up actually when he finished with it. It was just incredible. So anyways, check out Chip's video on how to set up just look for Chip Ellis EVH 78, something like that. And you'll find it. He talks about how Ed taught him how he used to do it back in the day. It was a really cool video. Was the nut brass? Yes, brass nut. And I love that they did this on this, because there's some things that they didn't, they made the 78 model a few years ago that was very expensive with every single detail created and all that stuff recreated. They didn't do some of the stuff. Like, for example, this is a basswood body. It's not a hard ash body. So little things like that. Where I understand they got to differentiate, between the super expensive one that was a limited number and then this one. So, but they did do like the brass nut and some really key things. It's very cool, I think. Super chats I got to get to here. There's some, wow. Thank you guys for the super chats. I appreciate it. You're keeping the coffee flowing around here. Preben Ekos says, I'm not saying that anywhere near right, I'm sorry. I got here late tonight. No problem, man. Just bought a couple of new guitars and realized I suddenly hate the JB Bridge humbucker and my trusty Strat. Should I put a 500K pot in it? Will I get more clear? Oh, yeah. If you got a 250 in there, that'd be the first thing I would do is definitely, you don't want a 250K with a JB, especially, which is going to be a MIDI or darker, lower resonant peak kind of pickup. So you will benefit from a 500K pot for sure. So try that first. Absolutely, my friends. Thanks for your help, Pete. Here's a beer. Hey, thanks, Guy Donut. Appreciate it. These talks are like gold to us. Hey, man, thanks. I know. I look forward to this every week. You guys being here. This is a collaborative effort. I couldn't do this without you guys. I have so much fun doing this. Let's see. Do I think line 6 pedals are worth the price? Which ones? They devalue like a car. Taking multi-effect. Oh, multi-effects. Well, that's pretty much any digital multi-effect. We just hit 400 people. Yay, we made it to 400 this week. Let's keep it going. Hopefully more people show. I love that though. It's the hardcore group here. We're the hardcore. We're the nerds that are here every week. 243 weeks, almost in a row. We're obsessed. Oh, just went to 392. I offended somebody. Yeah, that's just the nature of the beast with multi-effects. With anything digital, they tend to, unless it's like classic digital, like a H3000 or a PCM42 or whatever, that's just kind of the nature of the beast. But I don't think that that's a reflection actually on the quality of it. Like, for instance, the Echo Park delay is still fantastic. The Roto machine is a great Leslie pedal, and those have been out, over 10 years. The Echo Park is one of, I think, Tim Pierce's still favorite delays for a pedal board. It's got a terrific Memory Man simulation in it. It just sounds really great. So, yeah. It should go by the sound, not by the resale is, Paul says, how is that new EVH guitar? So much fun, actually. I'm such a nerd for all things Eddie that, it's like, I'm a Sir diehard guy. Obviously, I have a signature Sir instrument and stuff, but you got to cut us some slack. It's the only guitar I've ever seen that's not Ibanez that Paul Gilbert has played in the last 30 years is an EVH Frankenstein. Or John Mayer, or or Andy Wood. He's another Sir guy. He's got an EVH Frankenstein. It's like, come on, we got to have our fun with our Van Halen guitars. It's just cool. Plus, they're friends. I love those guys. I love Ed, and Matt is a good friend of mine. I speak to him all the time now, and it's his company with Wolf now, and they're my friends. So love them. Okay. Wow. I got super chats. I gotta get to these. I'm sorry, you guys. What are you guys talking about here? VH's symmetrical scale patterns were so genius. Yes, that's like that thing I just played on the Beautiful Girls. Yeah, it's just like it falls under the fingers. It's not any particular scale. It's a pattern, but the notes twist in such a way that it's super cool. He just was like, You know, he was coming up with these licks sitting there on the edge of his bed practicing, going, "What if I did this here? Well, no, it's a little out, but it sounds cool. All right, cool." You know, and it's so neat. You know, it's like it was for him. It was like if it sounds good, it is good. That whole thing. It's important to remember. Is the 30-foot Echo album available? No, but the 40-foot Echo album is. It's on iTunes. That's why you can't find it because you're putting in 30-foot Echo. It's called 40-foot Echo. This is that band I was in. Hollywood Records band that I made a record with in about 2002, 20 years ago. Some good songs on that record. I really like Tomorrow. I really like A Long Way Down is a really cool song. I love the chorus. It's got a neat arc to it. Actually, the verse is really pretty too. The whole song's actually really cool. It's kind of that, new, it doesn't sound like new metal, but it has, the production, something in common with that and stuff like that. But if you listen to the song, it's just a song, it's a really nice song, I think. What else did we do on that record that was cool? There's one other song I'm forgetting the name of, but anyways, doesn't matter. Check it out if you want to. 40-foot Echo. There's a guy on the cover with a big cone on his head, if you're looking for it. Do you use the Synergy stuff a lot when you record or play live? Which Synergy preamp module would you say you bond with the most? I haven't, but I have it here because I made some videos for the modules and stuff, and I can tell you which ones I like. I think the BBBE is really nice because it's a Fender Marshall-y thing in one, basically. So that's nice for clean, dirty. If you could only have one, that would be a great one. If you had like a single channel and you wanted a great, clean, dirty, so the BBBE, that's a Friedman one. The Vi one, big contrast in the two channels. It's got a very, very different kind of distortion channel, but it's great for, as you might expect, for single note solos, high gain. It's not a Marshall-y sound in particular. It's got its own thing going on, and I like it. It's got its own character that's very unique. So that's the green one. This one. Here's two of my favorites right here. Let's take a look at them. This is the Vi, right? The green one. And so it's got a clean channel and a distortion channel. And the clean is super sparkly, like hyper sort of, Blackface Fender sounding. A lot of sparkle, and you can add some compression to it and a little bit of effects, and it's really good sounding. And then the lead is very Vi. It's just, Steve said to me when I interviewed him about the Jose Marshall, and he was talking about when he was searching for a tone, and then he got into doing his instrumental guitar records and stuff, and he was like, okay, I'm the lead singer now. And, some of those old Marshall sounds can sound pretty aggressively upper MIDI and stuff. And he was like, yeah, I have to take into consideration, like, I'm going to be listening to this sound for 90 minutes every night or something, an hour and a half, whatever, on stage. And so is the audience. And it's like, if it's like really like, most bands, if you got a singer or whatever, you're playing chords and rhythm and stuff, and then you step out for a solo and you can have a really cutting solo tone and all that. But Steve wanted a more sort of, from what I garnered anyway, a more sort of lyrical, it's like you're the lead singer, so your voice and the tone of your voice. Do you want it to be or do you want it to be So anyway, he had to come up with I think a tone that's what he was always searching for, was a sound that was as the lead singer, And I get that, and that made a lot of sense to me, the way that he described it to me. So this definitely has that kind of it's great for big fat single note, unique kind of sound that's not necessarily Marshall. This guy also not necessarily Marshall, the Engel Savage. This is a great heavy sound. It's got a different character to it. That's just a big fat cool. Doesn't sound like the SLO one. I don't know how to describe it. I was just like, that's cool. That's different. That's something I don't have here. So and it's nice to have the thing I like about it is it's small and compact, and yet you can have all those different, a bunch of different color. Like if I was making a record or something I might go, you know what, I want a different kind of solo sound for this. Let's try the Vi module, or I want a real metal kind of like, different. I don't want Marshall on this. I want a different kind of modern. So how about the Engel Savage, and then you just plug it in and dial it up, and there it is, so something different. So that's nice. Just have different colors. I'm a Marshall guy through and through, 85% of the time, that's what I want to hear is a plexi, basically. So the PT15 and PT100, it's reflected in that. But even, I've got the Hedgehog sitting here right now. I've been enjoying it because it's a different sound. The lead sound, when you switch in the OD circuit, it's much more dumble, and it's a different. Once again, probably a little more. I mean, it's not the same thing, but I mean, you could. I wonder what Steve Vai would sound like on a Dumble actually doing a song. It'd probably sound great because that's kind of the thing. That different kind of solo voice. Yeah. Sweet riffing and trim setup. Thanks for the quick lessons. Yeah, man. Love me some Sundays with Pete. Thanks, Travis. Thank you for the super chat. Thanks all you guys for the super chats. Too kind. Keep me working. Appreciate it. Do I like the Studio Rats? I've heard about these guys, but I haven't checked them out, to be honest. So I got to check that. You're the second person that's mentioned them. I gotta check them out. Gotta check them out. Let's see. What else have we got here? You have a lot of material from your review videos. Anything in particular looking forward to putting on a future release? I got to go back and listen. There's a few things I've done in the cleaner realm. One of them was the full tone video for the tri-chorus. So I want to go back and listen to that because that's 6 years ago or something I did it. But I want to go listen to that piece because I seem to remember thinking it was pretty cool. Clean chorusy tri-chorus kind of thing. So I got to go back and listen to that. But other than that, I generally go back and listen and go, oh yeah, that one, and go like, that's fun. Let's flesh that out into a full tune, and that's how I go at it. So I got to go do some listening and just pick a few, there's a lot there though. You're right. And there's no reason to probably write more. It's like I got so much to draw from. I go, I get excited when I go back and I listen. I'm like, that was cool. Like, I forgot about that, and you always listen to it 4 or 5 years later and you're like, I can't remember how to play it. But I remember the thing. And it's a fun thing, like to go back and like a weird, like flipping through an old photo album. You go back, oh, look at that. I was 11 years old. I kind of remember that, and it takes you back. It's like that. So the JB is a super hated pickup in my experience, says Paul. It's a one sound pickup to me. But the sound is a good sound if that's what you want, which is nailing the front end of an amp and kind of MIDI. I think Warren DeMartini used it a lot. Didn't Jake use it or no? I think Jake used it, didn't he? Isn't that the pickup in a Jake E. Lee guitar? Let me see here. Thought it was. I thought it was a JB in the bridge and a SDS ones in the neck in the middle. Let's see what it says here. I'm trying to read the specs, and of course there's a million like ads and bullshit, and I'm just trying to see neck, fretboard, pickups. Yeah, JB. Jake had good tone. You know what's interesting about the Jake guitars, those SDS ones, the way they balance. I think I brought this up already on the show last week because a similar subject came up, balancing single coils and humbuckers. But yeah, like an SDS one balance is great with a JB as far as the volume of the singles. So Jake was a smart guy, and probably still is. Still haven't met him. I want to meet him one day. Steven says, hit the thumbs up, folks. Yeah, that'd be great. Hit the thumbs up if you're enjoying the show. Help spread the video across the worldwide interwebs if you like it. If you don't like it, then don't. But, yeah. Okay. What else we got here? If Van Halen wasn't a thing, this show wouldn't exist. Well, I might not be so into guitar if Van Halen wasn't a thing, But we all must pay respects. Oh, you know what is that? So on that subject, since you brought up Van Halen, I was listening to OU 812 yesterday, which is great. It's so good. It might be I don't want to say it's my favorite, but it's like I really enjoy it as a Sammy era album, and not like that I don't like Sammy, but I enjoy the songs so much more, to be honest, than just for me, than maybe Balance, which I never really got into that record, although there's some cool things on there. But OU 812 is like there's some really great stuff on that record, you know? People have talked about it for years, like folks have said they should go back and remix it. But even the mix didn't sound bad to me yesterday. I was listening to it. It was like, this is great, you know? And the songs are fun, man. There's like Source of Infection. Cabo Wabo is like great. What a great riff. It's cool. And it's just a snapshot in time. It sounds like 1988 in a good way. It sounds like 1988 in a good way. I don't mean that like in a campy way or whatever. It's like, I remember listening to this for the first time, you know, and it had some real shredders and crazy Eddie playing on it that was great. And then it had Finish What You Started, which is actually a really great little song, you know, that's a departure that totally worked. It's like, you know, just cool. Richard says those glasses look great. Thank you. I love these glasses. There is actually a link. Yes, I'm going to shameless plug because I get a perk. But no, I love these glasses. This company, I hooked up with them a while ago, and I found them online. And I was like, "Your glasses are amazing," or whatever. And they went and they checked out my stuff on YouTube and stuff. They're like, "Why don't you, we'll send you an affiliate link if you like them." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So I got some, and there's a link in the video description below where you can click, and they're just cool. They make a whole bunch of different. Like they got a slight blue tint, but they make these with a slight green and a slight pink as well, if you want to get a different thing. And you can actually see there, I think, that these are progressives. See it bend on the Soldano? So these are 1.5 progressives, and you can either get them in reading glasses or progressives, but they're just really great. I mean, like, if you don't want to wear a pair of drugstore, Foster Grants or whatever, and you want some cool looking reading glasses or progressives, we're all getting older, aren't we? I'd venture to guess that you guys out there aren't kids. Maybe some of you, but yeah, I love these. And then you can't see my weird ass crooked eye if I wear these too. So that's cool. Kind of disguise. It's a disguise. It's a disguise is what it is. Hartman Flanger. What are you guys talking about? Rare. I have one of those. It's great. It's basically a first edition Electro-Harmonix Electric Mistress. Really, really good sounding. Have some good coffee. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate the super chat. More guitar we need. Thanks for being here, you guys. Thank you. You were in Vegas last night. I was not in Vegas last night. I was not. I was here in LA. Indeed. Travis says the Line 6 DL4s are on pedal boards all over the world and hold their value. Somebody was saying earlier that Line 6 pedals don't hold their value. I would agree with that. I think those ones, the modulation modeler and the delay modeler, they were kind of like, back in 2003 or whatever, when guys had those both on their board, the mod and the delay. You could just see everybody had those two pedals, pros, on their board. They had just enough presets. It's like you could do your 3 presets or whatever in a tap. So you could do a slap and a long ass delay and whatever, and have your sounds. And then you could have your 4 mod, whatever, like your, a phaser, a vibe, a chorus, and a tremolo or whatever, and have them all right there at your feet. What more do you need? That, a compressor, a wah, a couple overdrives, and a fuzz, and you're good. Reverb. Oh, there's another super chat there. I'm going to grab that. Let's see. I got super chatorama going on. It's true. It's great. I love it. Thank you. Keeps the coffee flowing around here. I've ordered a Fender dual pot with both 250K and 500. Any experience with those types of things? I have not. Is that a thing where you can switch between them? How do you do that? Or do you mean like when you go to your singles, it's 250, and when you go to the humbucker, it's 500, and it's just wired a certain way? I don't know, because that's the way a SUR is wired, I believe. I think the SURs that are hum single are wired so that the single C250K and the humbucker sees 500. There's a way you can do that for those of you out there that have hum single guitars. A good tech will know what I'm talking about. Does a guitar have to be expensive to sound good? Absolutely not. I've got some Dan Electros around here that sound super cool for what they are. And define expensive. One man's expensive could be another man's cheap. But, Eddie used a Particicaster that was, a $50 neck and an $80 body or whatever. And then he assembled it. Back to Eddie again, of course. But it's just thinking about that. Isn't that funny? The original one of these was like just a parts guitar. It was a Particicaster. Had some great music made on it. So no, but if you want specific things, you got to thread that needle. If you want a specific neck shape, you want custom this and that, you want it to like, oh, now a guitar gets more expensive. Have I ever recorded with anybody in Japan? Yes. I've done a lot of work in Japan. I've recorded with Tyoshi Nagabuchi, so I was on his last record, I think it's his last record, on Black Train. I'm playing a bit on there. And I was on actually one of his son's singles. He brought out a single that was kind of a reggae tune that I played on while I was over there. What else have I done in Japan that I recorded over there? One of the first things I ever did career-wise was I was signed to a Japanese division of Sony in the mid-90s. And that was what got me out of, that was my break into the music business, was actually getting a Japanese record deal. So I went to Japan sort of to talk with the label, talk about the deal, what we were going to do. And I was in a band that had a singer that was half Japanese and could speak fluent Japanese. So that was a big part of why all that happened, right? But and that was the beginning of my love affair with Japan. 95, I went there. Still think about, it just, that I don't know what it is about Japan, but I love it. So it's many things. But so when I was on that trip, one of the other things we did was work with a Sony artist in Tokyo. We got together in a studio and wrote a whole bunch of tunes, and wrote and recorded, just demoed though. I think none of that was on a record. But that singer, her name was Ami Anuki, I think was the last name, and she went on to do Ami Puffy Yumi, which is huge in Japan. Ami Puffy, was another girl, and it was like Ami and Puffy. They were two-girl pop duo, and late 90s, early 2000s, they blew up, and they were massive in Japan. But this was when she was still a unknown. She was about 19, I think, something like that. So I'd love to talk to her again, see what she's doing. She was really nice. We kind of made friends back then and stuff. We used to write letters. This is pre-internet, really. Because it's 95, right? So it's just before people were, I remember the IMAX, the blue clamshell one or whatever was like 99. People had those. So it's like, yeah, I didn't even have a computer or anything. So we used to write letters, and she used to write me these letters on this Japanese stationery that was like, it was so cute. It was like, and we were like pen pals, after that. But anyway, she went on to become like a huge pop star in Japan, and then I lost touch with her. So I hope she's good. I'd love to talk to her again. That's more than you wanted, but hey, that's the questions that you ask, and then I go on tangents. You should get Neil, Sean, or Lukather on the show. I would love to do that. Either of them, these guys are my heroes too. So it's like, sometimes it's weird, but I know Luke is the sweetest guy in the world. I've met Neil. He was very nice to me, and, we had a good talk, and, I'm sure Luke would probably be down. He's done, I did Tone Talk once, and he was on it. And then I called in, and actually they just let me in the show. And then we ended up hanging for a few minutes on there. That's the closest I've done to anything like that, I guess. What else we got here? What are you talking about? You guys are talking about the modules. Well, I mentioned for Synergy that the Friedman, the BBBE was one of the if you could only have one, actually, that would probably be, because it's Fender high gain Marshall basically in one. So it's a really good one. Agreed. I don't agree with this. Jack White is everything that's wrong with the guitar world. I think Jack White is a lot to do that's right. He's just different, I love Jack White. I don't know. I think he's if not innovative, I think he's unabashedly himself. And I like his attitude more than anything. And like I say, when I get in my own, head on stage or anything, I try and think about his attitude, because his attitude is in the right place. He will break the fucking guitar, and then get on the mic and just scream into the microphone if that's the right thing to do in the song, and it'll have a visceral kind of cool impact. And I like that. But I'm not I like a lot of different kinds of music, and I really like, I like the energy of punk rock and the attitude of I like expression and emotion, over everything. So like I like the human element over some sort of technical perfection or mastery of the instrument or whatever. I'm more about like because people are sort of like inherently messed up. And like I have this feeling like when music is too perfect or there's too much emphasis placed on like technical perfection or whatever, I feel like you lose the human element and I tend to tune out because that's not interesting to me because I'm human and I'm flawed. So I like the flaws and I like the attitude when things aren't necessarily perfect. And and when there's an emotion put into it's more about the emotion because we're like emotional creatures. And so Jack White has a lot of that in his playing. So for me, that works. It's not for everybody, but uh, you know, I think he's great. And he also does the exact opposite of what you think he's going to do, which is very artistic and cool. I think, like for example, when he went from playing, like whatever, like Silvertones and National or whatever those guitars, airline, style guitars. He shows up with a custom EVH with a Floyd on it for the next album. Exact thing you think he's not going to do. And it's custom. So he put thought into it. He doesn't go to the store and get one. It's blue or whatever with 3 pickups and they make him a custom. Like that's the coolest thing. He does the flip of what you think he's going to do. And he's an artist. He does amazing things with Third Man too. With if you see some of the releases and the special stuff he does, like with colored vinyl, and the record will play from the inside out on the second side instead of from the outside in. Like all this fun stuff. That's like, yeah, what if we made it? We can do anything we want. We own a vinyl pressing plant. Let's make it so the record plays reverse. You got to put the needle on this side like it sounds little, but I think that's cool. It's like it's fun. So when you buy something, there's something unique about it's special. It's what I liked about records growing up was what's in the liner notes and there's a fold out jacket and there's pictures of the live whatever, like all that stuff is so fun and part of the art, and he does that almost like no one else. I got a lot of respect for that guy. A lot. Your signature, sir, is the bridge decked? No, it's floating and I set it up generally speaking so that the bridge is on my signature. It's a little bit forward. So I'll set it up so that, and hopefully it's like this now. It should be. But a whole step on the G, right? You can hear that. And about a half step on the B, right? And that's how I set it up so that if I'm playing something like that kind of stuff, so that if I'm playing a solo and I want to grab it and do you can set it up quite easily like that. And generally speaking, if it's a 2-post trim, you just get, it's very fine on the screws. You got to, and it's not like an exact whole step or an exact half step, but it's close. And that'll be where the bridge generally is just leaning forward just a little bit from parallel with the body. And so that's how I always do it. Yeah. If I break a string, I'm screwed. I go way out of tune. Oh, well, I just act like Jack White and then smash the guitar in that moment. What else we got here? You guys are still talking about JBs. It's a classic. I have a JB in my Jackson. That was the pickup that I put in there for years. It's like, that was the one to get. I tried a bunch of different stuff. I remember trying a full shred, a trembucker, like the blue Saraceno trembucker. I actually got in a car accident on my way to buy that pickup. I don't think I know blues now. I've never told them that. When I was going to buy your pickup, I got in a car wreck. I was so excited to get to the store and pick it up. That was no pun intended. Put a JB in my Dean Cadillac. The kick in the ass it needed. Tap still has usable single coil. Yeah, I mean, probably going to be actually a more usable single coil than most because it's going to be 7K or something, right? And it's going to be like a kind of probably a little bit more powerful and legit sounding than a lot of tap humbuckers. So, not hardware or guitar related, but how's Toby? Toby's good. Toby's good. You guys want to see Toby? There he is. Just look at him. Oh, look at him. I love that guy. What are my thoughts on Ibanez guitars? They're a legendary company that I've never owned one of the kind of the modern ones, but I have my first Ibanez guitar now, which is a 1976 or 75 Ibanez Destroyer that's back there. And I love the hell out of that thing. But that was obviously early days. They're a different company now. But they forged their own path, actually. In the beginning, they were copies and everything, and then they diverged from that and started making variations on the classic body shapes, let's say, I guess, and by the late 80s, they had their swoopy, the gem and then doing the crazy kind of rounded bodies of the Satriani, like that's different, and they would design their own tremolos and what else did they do that was cool? I mean, even the Phil Collin Destroyer, that was different. 3 pickups with the little cut on the bottom and the whole thing and a tremolo. And, they always had a slightly different take on classic stuff. And it was cool. I got respect for Ibanez. Yeah. Have you heard about the new Helix update? I haven't. Haven't checked that out yet. When do I think my new signature guitar will start shipping? So I know it's taking a long time. I don't know, man. It's a good question for a dealer, to be honest. And I don't want to get in trouble by saying something because I could easily get in trouble by saying something that then isn't the truth. So it's a question for dealers, and dealers will be able to tell you because they know exactly when they've ordered something. And then in their system or whatever, they can tell when it's going to be built, basically. So it's hopefully soon, but it's quality problems. They've just the bandwidth. SIR's like it's not a small company, but it's not a big company. So they can only build so many, and they've had a number of orders. I mean, still, the pandemic. It was like you get people out for COVID and stuff and everything, and it would shut down, a lot of production for any company, right? And so they were not immune to that and stuff. And in the time where guitars were getting ordered more and more than ever during like 2020, it was crazy. So it's like a big boom in business, but you have this backlog of stuff you got to build now. So that's the thing. And it's all about like, there's no favorites being played, when the guitar gets ordered by the dealer and the customers or whatever, those are the ones whenever it was ordered. Now it's in a timeline and it's got to get built first, before stuff that was ordered later on, even if it's my signature model that was introduced this past year. They've got to work through everything that's been ordered for all the customers, right? So anyway, on OU812, I hear elements of balance as far as the tone. Well, that's an interesting thing because Eddie had gone by then to, stereo, and some of the things in the rig, such as the, it was H910s, 949s in the early days, and then H3000 later on, probably came in the early 2000s, probably around the previous record, the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge record, I think. But you're getting the stereo SD3000, then you're getting the H3000. There's the PCM 70, and who knows how much was done at the board and how much was done actually through cabinets. But I know I've talked to Friedman about that, and other folks, and he mentions that that he was kind of doing the full rig in the studio, I think, by then, and certainly by Balance, where there was actually the multiple cabs set up and the whole 9 yards getting recorded, so it's interesting because you can do it. I mean, I can do that here. I can either mic a full rig and do stereo delays and all that stuff coming out of cabinets, pain in the butt. It's much easier to do at the desk. If I have a room I can get to easily and multiple mics and I got my own engineer and all that stuff, now it's not a big deal, but you know what I'm saying? It's like if you mic a single cabinet and then add H3000, then add a stereo delay and do all that stuff, you can do that easily within a DAW now and get a really, really very, very similar sound to if you were going to do it live through cabinets. So it's hard to say, I guess, what he was doing exactly like per track once you bring all those stereo effects into the equation. But also one thing that happens that I find is like you don't hear as much variation from amps when you're playing the stereo effects. A distorted guitar sound comes a little bit more like a distorted guitar sound, and then the effects are like kind of once you add H3000 or 949 or you know, the individual pickups, the amp sounds. It's a little less, you know, because the more raw you get, the more less of that stuff. Now we're just talking about, you know, your fingers, the guitar, the pickup, the amp, the cabinet, the speakers, and then maybe there's some reverb on it. It's like every little thing matters a little more. If you add stereo effects and delay and stuff, now it gets, you know what I'm saying? It gets a little bit washed, not in a bad way. It's just a different sound. And you might have a harder time telling, say, one Marshall from another or an SLO to a Marshall. Like, do we know? Like, you know, it's a little less. I think Ed was experimenting a lot more too. Like when I listened yesterday to OU812, the guitar sound on Cabo Wabo is clearly not a bridge pickup. So what was he playing? You know, I haven't done enough research into that, but it sounds like a, you know, maybe it's Strat, neck and middle. I don't think so. Maybe neck pickup, maybe middle pickup. I don't know. It's something else though. It's not that dirty, and it's got a kind of meaty sound to it that isn't bridge pickup distorted to me, you know. So I need to go back and research a little, because actually, you know, obviously, you know, unfortunately, we're not, you know, going to have more Van Halen albums. So it's like, it's fun to go back and listen, go, you know, I haven't actually put enough time into this record. I didn't listen to it nearly as much as, say, Fair Warning or something, you know. So let's listen to this one and like get into the songs a little bit, and because there's some different stuff on there, you know, and it deserves, you know, some listening time. So it's fun. Anyways, the song Black and Blue is so damn awesome. It really is. Yeah, that's the one that I heard that actually got me into going back and listening, because there was a clip on Instagram of the live. It's live in '89, I think, in Japan. It was a Pro Shot show, and they're playing that, and it was great, you know, the solo live. And so then I went and put the album on actually and listened to the record in the car while I was driving. I was like, fuck, this is awesome, man. It sounds so good. So really good songs. But yeah, I love that. Naturally Wired is probably my favorite by Van. It's a great song, you know, and it's a burner. You know, it's so cool, and we don't listen to it. Maybe, you know, we need to do a little appreciation of, you know, something, a little YouTube stuff or something more of that record, and talk about how great that stuff was, you know, because it's really cool. Intro to finish, what you started is cool. Yeah, and the solo, it's great, you know. It's DI, right? It's Strat DI into the board with little effects added and stuff. It's so cool. Great sound, you know. The background vocals, you know, it's so cool. It's like, what a great track. Really fun song, you know. It's just a fun little song. Oh, that's cool. Iron Man says he saw him in '86 at the Forum. That's awesome. I never saw that tour, man. I don't think it came to Edmonton. Definitely didn't. I would have been, but they were there in '84, so I saw the '84 tour with Dave, which was amazeballs. But the next time I saw Van Halen, I think, was '92 or so in LA. It was, I don't remember where it was. Maybe Verizon, which is now Irvine Meadows. You know, whatever the theater is now. I don't know if it's even still there. I'm not even sure if they repurposed it or what. But I think that's where it was. It was in Orange County somewhere, with Vince Neil opening with Steve Stevens on guitar. I remember that show pretty well. 92, 93. Richard says, great drum sound. Yeah, I kind of like the drums too on OU812. Really, people talk about, it's a little washed out sounding, the record. And there's a lot of the stuff on the guitar, you know, the harmonizer and stuff. But it's still good. It still sounds like, would you want it to be any different? You know, I think records are sort of like snapshots in time, and they're like, I like remixes and stuff sometimes. Some of the Beatles remixes that have come out and stuff are really interesting because of the clarity and the punch. And it's like, so I guess I could hear OU812 being remixed it'd actually be really cool. You know, like, I wonder who'd be good to do it. A remix of that record. I'd love to hear somebody like Kevin Shirley, or is that his name? Caveman, the guy that did, you know, whoever did, he did the Jimmy Page. Did he do Celebration Day? I know he did the earlier, the Hala West was one. That stuff, you know, was mixed so well. It was really cool. You know, so, I mean, something like that, or maybe like I don't know, Brendan O'Brien or something. You know, just like a really cool, clear, punchy mix of that record would be pretty damn cool. I'd like to do it. my take on it. Dakota says Balance had bangers. The songs were sort of like the ones you're mentioning. Amsterdam was kind of fun in a similar way but I'm not as into the writing on that record. Mainly just lyrics. It's and it's a little more serious and kind of it's lost a little bit of the fun to me of what Van Halen, or a little bit of the grit or something. That's the only thing about that record for me. It just doesn't capture as much of the it's a little more normal sounding. If I got to be critical of artists, like the last AC/DC record is sort of like that to me. The one that came out a few years ago. Anybody listen to that? I really tried. I listened to it a few times, and it's like it's AC/DC, so I got to give it to them. I love them, but lyrics and stuff, it's just AC/DC was like the lyrics are it's a thing, and of course it's tough, but to recreate, but it's either like even in the Brian era, for those about to rock is just like it gets me, like, and it's like the lyrics on the last record were just kind of like, oh, it's not getting me. Like, I'm like, what's this song even about or something? And there was never an AC/DC song that was like that. It's like, the Jack or I don't know, Dirty Deeds or TNT, it's a long way to the top, Back in Black. I mean, it's just like this, like it gets you. It's like these guys are, so like the songs meant a lot, and the lyrics and stuff. And I guess that's the thing on, not to say like there was this like super, there was still a Van Halen party element to, Cabo Wabo, or, which is like this, part of the brilliance of Van Halen is that it's musically really brilliant and kind of intricate. But if you're not paying attention and you're just grooving, it sounds great. And it's just fun to listen to. And it sounds like a party. But what's actually going on under the hood is like really sophisticated. When people don't get that about Van Halen, I laugh, when it's like, they think, oh, it's just like some rock crap or something. It's like, dude, you're not getting the level of sophistication that's going on between Eddie and Alex and the, exactly what's happening and just how deep that pocket is and amazing, and then on top is this party element. It's all getting kind of, almost disguised with like, and I love that about Van Halen, the B section to Unchained, right? It's so musically sophisticated, but with Dave singing on top and everything, it's like this party. So the OU812 still has that, it's got that fun element in the songs and stuff. And even the ballads and stuff are kind of like, it's good times, good feeling. Yeah, it's cool. It's 1988, whatever. I like it. And then Balance for me was just like, just some of the songs is just heavier and darker. And so it's just so different removed from, like you say, the Seventh Seal and Don't Tell Me. And it's like, oh, that's not exactly what I what I love from Van Halen. You know what I mean? At least subject matter. Okay, that was really long-winded, but you've stuck with me. There's 426 people here. Sorry, my little dissertation on what I like and what I don't. And I think even Run Around and on the next record on the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge record, like that's really fun. Pound Cake, it's ridiculous lyrics, but it's silly, but but it's fun, whatever. Sammy had fun, and Run Around especially is just such a fun party of a tune. That was like a great summertime with the little sus chord, chords and stuff, and it's just really fun. So that had that element too, and yeah, I like some of that in my Van Halen. And if it's going to be dark, I want it to be Mean Street, So, or Dirty Movies, who are still fun. It's like kind of, yeah. You remember when that girl was prom queen? What do we got here? Patrick, TPS, they had a split from Sin Amp Effects Loop and add Paramel Elixir later. Wet Red Wet question. Others use a line out box and no splitter. Send amp effects loop. I like to do it after the power amp and take a tap, because if you just do it from the send, you're only getting a preamp of the amp and you're not getting the sound of the power section, right? So using a Sir line out box, or something custom made, or something from Friedman, or the line out on an attenuator. Even if you're not using the attenuator, a lot of them will have a line out. That's just taking a tap off that at line level, off the speaker signal, and you're getting the sound of the amp and the cabinet interacting, not the speakers, but the impedance curve and the output transformer, the amp and all that good stuff is getting out to that line out. So I want that in that sound, So for me, the right thing to do is a line out box. And then you're saying parallel mixer. Yeah, you can run out into, a Rain SM26 or whatever they're called, or another, the parallelizer from Musicom Lab is brilliant for a pedal board based one. It's got 3 sets of stereo sends and returns, and the mono dry, so you can mix your dry and then all your effects right there on the thing, and you can do it all on a pedal board. If you have a stereo delay and a stereo reverb and a, say, pitch like H3000 or whatever, getting back to Van Halen, if you want to do that, you could actually do it on a pedal board with something like the parallelizer from Musicom line out box, And that's not the only way to do wet, dry, wet either. Of course, you can do the mic pre-way, which is, the Landau way and all that, where you mic the cabinet, mic a dry cabinet, 412, whatever. Mic goes into a mic pre in your rack, let's say, and you take the send out of that and go into a mixer, and then send out to your stereo effects and all that. And then you can take those stereo line out signal and give that to the PA, or if you want to hear it in cabs, you can send out to a power amp and some cabs too and do that. There's different ways to do wet, dry, wet. So many different ways, actually. Yeah. Ooh, righty. What do we got here? I've been here for an hour and 56. I'm gonna go about another 10-15 minutes, then I'm gonna split and I got a whole bunch of work to do, because I'm headed out to do the benefit this week. Mr. Paul Rogers and Alice Cooper and all these fun people I get to go jam some stuff with. It's gonna be a blast. Do humbucker size P90s lose anything, or do they sound worse? Or I don't think so. I mean, it's just it's basically the same. Not from the folks I know that have done them, they don't, they've made them. I've never heard of anybody saying, it's not as good, as it's, a P90, you can just kind of put in anything. And then, I don't think there's a big difference between dog ear ones and soap bar ones. It's just a coil magnet, put it in a humbucker cover, whatever. Yeah. Oh, this is cool. I remember these. Secret to cheap guitars are amazing value. Find an old Samick Blue Saraceno Radio 10. They go for cheap and slap a good set of pickups in it. You're all welcome. It's a good guitar. I agree. And they're cool looking. The creamsicle one, cool. Let's see if I can find one here. I wonder what they go for. They were neat, because I worked in a music store that was kind of like a budget music store when I was a kid, and they sold those. So I used to see them all the time, play them. They were cool. They were kind of like a cheap EVH, a cheap Axis, right? Back in the day. See if I can find one. Oh, here. Samick. Let's see if I can find one. There's a red one. That's cool. Images. Yeah, there's one. Well, they are cheap. There's one on eBay for $700. I mean, it's not like super cheap. They weren't much more than that new. But this is the vibe. Where's my phone? There it is. I do this in such a stupid way. I could do this where I take the picture and then actually link it, but I'm not going to do that. Let's see what I mean by the cheap EVH. And, there's the way they looked. That's what this gentleman's talking about. Kind of cool, right? They're neat looking, actually. Like kind of a yeah, it was basically like really similar to the Axis when it came out. I thought, oh, it's kind of a telly looking super stratty sort of thing, Quiz Crin says the Line 6 M9 is a Nashville staple. M9 is a good pedal. The M5 is a good pedal, for an all-rounder. There's other stuff now, but they were good. I mean, I had M9 for a number of years. I mean, all the way through I think Henley, I had one. Maybe not. I had a timeline on my board with Henley. Then when I went to Melissa Etheridge, I had a M9. I had an M9 on my board for a couple of years with Melissa, and I used to use it for some stuff, for filter and tremolo and kind of random stuff. So I use a Mobius for that now, really. The stuff that I would have used the M9 for. And I think the Mobius is brilliant. I still think it's brilliant. Great mod box. Underrated, even as much as they're out there. But yeah. What else have we got here? Did you ever do a session where people think the band member played, but it was really you? I don't think so. I haven't done that many. I'm not like a guy that's done thousands of sessions and replaced people like Tim Pierce or something. You know, most of my career has been as a live player, not as a session guy. I've done, worked for Linda Perry for a couple of years and made records with people and stuff. And then I was like, okay, I'm actually a session guy now. Here I am working in sessions every day. But that was for a couple of years. And then the sessions would be few and far between. Generally speaking, like guys that do a lot of sessions, you got to stay in town. You can't really go on tour. And because, what happens is you're going to get a touring gig, go for 6 months. And then that producer that hired you is making records. And they're like, well, that guy's not in town. I'll hire this guy. They get somebody else they like. And then they're on the in and you're out. And I kind of did that with Linda even. I mean, when I left, I was out playing with Cornell. I got the Chris Cornell gig about, let me see, 2006. I started working with Linda Perry. And about a year after we met, I got the Chris Cornell gig, spring of 2007. So I worked a lot of 2006 with Linda in the studio and doing stuff. I did a little tour. I toured with Jewel in the summertime, I remember, for a couple of months. But that was only for a couple of months, really. And then some one-offs. And I was basically like Linda's first call session guy during that whole year. So that's when I did stuff with, like, we made a record with Daniel Powder. We did a record with a guy named Ben Yellen, Alicia Keys, did a bunch of different stuff that year. 2007, I get the gig with Cornell. I would still come in and work with Linda, like, as I was coming back. But by the end of 2000, it was kind of like I did like a couple of years, 2006, and then part of 2007, the rest of 2007 with her. But I was gone for like 9 months with Cornell. Like, we toured from April through December. Yeah, hard. Like, didn't come back a lot. Went to Europe like 3 times, Australia, like all of the states of Canada, like just a ton of touring that year. So then she's going to hire other people, so that, of course, she has to. So anyway, that's that story. But then, so I'm like a touring guy at that point, so I'm so far back in the chat, I do believe. So I'm going to, because we're talking about stuff I talked about half an hour ago. So in the chat here, so I got to move forward. Sorry to intrude. You're not intruding, my friend. You're here. I'm here for you, and you're not intruding. So welcome. Hope all's well. Everything's great. Thanks. Would you choose between a Bogner, Ecstasy, or Mesa Boogie Mark series? That's a tough one. I never bonded with the Mesa Boogie Mark series that I had. So I would have to say the Ecstasy would be more my trip than a Mark. But then again, I never had a Mark V. And I think they were a big improvement over the 3 that I had. I didn't like my 3. I've heard 2Cs that sound good, 2C plus. But I kind of got off of the Mesa bandwagon like around 93 or 4. Got into I think I sold my Mark III and got a 5150, like an original, first edition, still had Phillips 6L6s in it, kind of 5150. And I was back in that kind of land, which is basically kind of a Marshall sort of thing, right? With more gain stages and some other stuff going on. And I sort of was like, yeah, this is way more me. And I went from there. So I used that block logo 5150 for a number of years and was very happy with it. So I owned other Mesas after that. I mean, I did a whole record with a 3-channel rectifier, and I had one of their 2020 power amps after that and stuff, but that's about it, I think. Okay, I'm going to go to the bottom of the chat here. I'll just grab this on the way. What are some guitar tips for a front of house engineer perspective? Meaning, how can a front of house best utilize a guitarist in the mix? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a front. I'd hate to, as a front of house. When I work with front of house people, I like to walk up front, listen to my guitar, and just make sure there's not some. The only problem I've had with sound guys is sometimes like there's a rigid approach, right? And like they always do a certain thing, and like, oh, I'm going to shelf the guitar at, I'm going to high pass the guitar at 120. Why? Like if it's, why not 100 or I'm talking about, so you lop everything off EQ wise below a certain point. Kind of makes everything sound like you're playing through a deluxe reverb if you do that to me. So little things like that, where it's like, no, to be better to go lower on my sound or for what I'm going for, at least I don't want to lose all that low end that I'm giving you, even though they might think, oh, well, this is just what you do. It's like that kind of rigid thing where, oh, I always do this, right? Well, it's no two good guitar players are like snowflakes, it's like no two are the same, right? Or four-leaf clovers or whatever, or rares. What is it I'm looking for? Snowflake. Yeah, snowflake. No, you know what I mean? They're all different. And so working with each individual guitar player, and guitar players can be jaded too, and front of house people can be jaded. So it's like not being jaded and just working together to get the best possible sound. And that's some of the best relationships I've had with people. The best front of house people are like, they want to work with you and they talk to you about things, and you can bring up things and they don't take it like, have you ever tried this microphone on a guitar cabinet? If they're like, nah, I don't I just want to use a 57. It's like, okay. And then that sort of shuts you down. But if they're like, yeah, I tried one of those once. This is sound cool. You want to try one of those? And I'm like, yeah. It's like, then I get all into it because it's like, you know what I mean? Like that collaborative, because it's your guitar sound. You put all this time into the rig and thinking about it. Now there's somebody that's their job is to present that and everything else in a cohesive so I'm always like, hey, if I can work with you at all to give you what you need out front, and they're like, yeah, cool. And then we can talk about things like I love that with front of house people, when there's a collaborative effort. If they kind of go, yeah, don't worry about that. That's my job. I kind of feel like shit about it. You know what I mean? So that's the only thing. I guess that's the thing. Guitar tips from a front of house perspective. If you're working with a guitar player that's obviously like a difficult person or something, then they've got a beef, But if both people are cool and the end result is just to have a great show and it sounds great in the PA and everything, then you've got something and a great collaborative thing. If each musician is willing to work with the front of house person is working with each musician to bring out the best. It's kind of like record production. I guess that's the perspective. Like you would never want that in the studio, like the engineer to just be like, don't worry about that. I'll make it sound the way I want it to sound. Be like, that's unheard of in the studio almost, unless you're really young. And they kind of like, don't worry about that, kids. We're the pros around here. You just play, I guess that might happen if you're a young band, but if you're, a band coming in working to produce engineer, it's that collaborative thing. And I don't really see why that should ever be any different in a live context. It should be the same. And then we're all working towards an end goal. There's a super chat there that I've missed. Can you recommend that UA aux? I think I'm short circuiting. UA aux top amp that you have over on your left shoulder. Yeah, they're good for a certain thing. I use them for when I want the effects. When I want room mics because they've got great room mic simulation in them. I love certain cabinets in it. The couple of the 412 sound good. The AC30 style cab is exceptional in it. I really enjoy that. And I like the 410 Bassman cab, the open back 410. That sounds really cool. And then, yeah, the long delay is really cool, having that and the different kind of effects you can do with it. So it's really nice. And from the perspective of somebody doing home studio stuff and they want an all-in-one kind of box, that aux box, it's great, especially if you can't have a mic cabinet now or volume. There's other stuff. There's the 2 notes, and it works really well too. And they just go at it their own different way. And then there's like all the way to the sort of reactive load, which is very simple, sitting right here. You can't see it, but It's just 16 IRs output. There's no room mic sounds or any effects or anything, but it's less expensive and it does a great job. Sounds really good. So there's all these different things now, you know. No, the aux does well. So much good gear. I mean, I could make a whole record with an aux, no problem. You know, could make a whole record with the two nuts. I could make a whole record with the reactive load. These are great tools we have. It's like, which car do you want? Do you want the, you know, the Lexus or the Infiniti or the BMW or the Mercedes? You know, which one do you want to pick to do your job? Are there any older modeling amps that you've been extremely impressed with? Some or many of the amp models? Modeling amps, not so much. I'm not really a modeling amp guy. It's funny because I feel like I like the modelers. I like the Quad Cortex and I like the different, you know, but the modeling amps, I feel like have sort of fallen out of favor unless they're the kind of disguised Fender ones that are a one sound thing. Those seem like they're kind of hip these days, like the Tone Master Super Reverb or Deluxe, right? And they basically look like a regular Deluxe, but it's digital. It's a one sound digital amp. Maybe they went so in the other direction, didn't they? It was kind of interesting because the original modeling amps, you know, the Line 6 Flex Tones or whatever they are, or the AX212 or whatever the heck, you know, they were like a million sounds with all these different models built into one. Now we've gotten, you know, 20 years later into the whole thing, and you've got these one sound Fenders that are kind of trying to not do so much. It's kind of interesting, you know, but yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm so far back in the chat, so I'm going to move down, and I've missed a couple super chats. I'm going to do them. Do any Nambrini amp plugins stand out to you as a cut above? The AC30 is really cool because it's one of the only AC30 plugins out there. There just ain't that many standalone, or, you know, like Neural doesn't have one. There isn't one for UA, you know, in their format. So it's like Nambrini was smart to do a UA AC30, or not a UA, just a AC30 plugin is what I'm trying to say. Really smart. So that's a really good one. Their 5150 is really cool. I mean, Nambrini's great, and I think they worked with Brainworks on a lot of their stuff. Like, I think Nambrini actually did some of the modeling, or maybe all the modeling, I don't know, for my plugin, the PT100. So it's good stuff. That might not be common knowledge out there, but I think their engineers or whatever, they were, you know, contracted to work with Brainworks and stuff. I think something to that. Somebody asked me why Sir earlier. Like, why do I use Sir? That's I use them because it's high quality stuff. It speaks to me because John is obsessed with quality, and he just became a really good friend of mine over the years. And I don't know how else to describe it. That vibe, you know, the drive towards quality and exacting stuff, and just, you know, and plus his personality, and it became like family to me. So, you know, that's why, you know, it's a great relationship. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Levi's talking about Van Halen as I'm moving down through the chat. He like VH1 the best. I can't pick a favorite Van Halen album, you know. I really can't, you know. What was the PCM 70 used for? You know, with Van Halen, I'm not really sure. I think Cathedral live, he ended up using it, and I'm not sure what else. And I have to ask Friedman about that. The H3000 was for the pitch. The SDEs were used for a split delay, so to give a bit of a stereo image of echo. And I think generally he would kind of do like a 250 or 500 kind of thing. So an eighth note or a quarter note on one side, but loosely timed. Like, it wouldn't be, I think he'd just kind of use one setting. But there was a few settings of that he would use, maybe less or more delay. I'm not sure. I don't know if the times change or not on the SDs, but anyway, it was a split stereo thing where one was half of the other one. So that's what he would do. And the 70, I think, Cathedral, and I don't know what else, to be honest. I have never been able to figure that out exactly, but I could ask some people and probably know right away. What do I think of Polyphia? I think, you know, cool. They're it kind of sounds like crazy video game music to me or something, or like very sort of robotic in a way, but it's technically, they're brilliant. And it's great that they're playing guitar and getting people interested in it in a way, that we, as older players or whatever, we might not go, well, that's my thing. But I love the idea of, that's what was rock and roll to jazz people or whatever. It was like, oh, what's this noise? I don't feel like it's noise. I just feel like it's different. It's very like technical, but it's getting people interested in guitar. So it's great, more the merrier. Do a whole Eddie show around his birthday. Yeah, I'll be in, I guess I could. I'll be in the UK. So I'll be on tour then. I'll probably be in some hotel in, who knows, Dartford or something. Hold up in a Premier Inn with slow internet. We'll see. Ooh, that's cool. Johnny saw the Women and Children First and Fair Warning tours. That's amazing. Amazing. For home recording, still UA aux. Another question about the aux. Yeah. I mean, it's a great unit, if you like the sort of the feature set and stuff. The only thing about an aux is you're not gonna be able to do external IRs with it. No, sorry, you can bypass the IRs in the aux and then do them in the computer. I just mean you can't load into the aux your own IRs. So if you want to use like Celestians or something, you're not going to put them in there. But you can bypass the speaker system in the aux and then do them in a plugin in the computer. So there's a way around that. So just be aware of that, though, that you're kind of within the unit itself, you're sort of stuck with what they give you, which is fine. They're great. How many speaker sounds do people need? What do I think of Jacob DeRap's Van Halen covers? He's really good. He plays great, from what I've seen. Oh, wow. I'm so far back in the chat. This is terrible. I'm sorry. CADDIS. I found it. Yeah, that's the company. CADDIS. It's in my, that's the glasses that I'm wearing here. These progressive readers. Look how weird that looks. Yeah, they're really cool. They make all kinds of other ones besides the aviator style too. So it's good stuff. But there's a link down below. If you click it, much appreciated. Braxall says, I think you said the new SLO pedal bites going straight into a power amp. So using the pedal into a power station will suck. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. I don't say it'll suck. It's just, there's a guy, okay, I have this here to do a video of, and I need to do it soon. This is the Amped One from Blackstar. So this is a 100-watt Class D style amp that has some preamp stuff in it as well, and also has some power amp modeling. So you can disable it all. So you can turn off the power amp modeling. It can just be a straight Class D 100 watts, no tone shaping. Or you can switch in some tube right here with this control, some tube power amp sort of models to kind of model what a tube power amp would do. And then you can also switch in the front end and make it more like you're now running into a Fender amp or a Marshall amp, right? So a guy did a really interesting review of the SLO pedal. He's in Europe somewhere. He's kind of a metal guy, kind of down-tuned dude. And you can go watch it and see his review using that pedal, because that's what he runs it into. And you can hear all the way from Class D, no coloration, and what he needs to do on the pedal to kind of make it work into a flat power amp. And then when he switches in the tube power amp sim, you can kind of hear what it does. And then he switches in the preamp models and you can hear what it does. And you'll hear exactly what I'm talking about in that guy's video. He demonstrated it brilliantly as far as how it's going to sound running into. So search for that video where you see the guy using that. It'll take you 5 minutes to find, I'm sure, if you search, SLO pedal demo, I don't know, something like that. You just got to search, and you'll fall on this guy. He's got kind of a Les Paul looking guitar, but it's down tuned real low. It might be a 7-string or something. And he's playing kind of metal. He's a European guy, broadly European accent. I don't know. He might be in Holland or something, or Germany, but speaking English. And he did a great video on it that will perfectly spell out what I'm talking about. And the thing about it is, it's not a preamp. It's a distortion pedal designed to be run into the front end of an amp. It needs the juiciness of a tube preamp to sound right, or not even a tube preamp, but a guitar preamp section, So you can't just run all distortion pedals into power amps and expect them to sound good, because they're not that sophisticated. A 9-volt pedal, it's like some of them are more sophisticated than others, So, okay. Yeah. Oh, this is interesting. Van Halen made Balance. Their manager had passed away. I do remember that, and they were grieving from it. Eddie said the lyrical themes were darker because of that. That's interesting. I could see that. Yeah, I think Ray Daniels had taken over as manager. That it's not Ray though, is it? That passed away? Was it? And probably that's probably around the time that Eddie might have lost, I believe, his mom, right? I think around that time. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I remember that now as well, that it was like some people passing away and it was kind of a darker record. Yeah. Okay. Going to the bottom of the chat. Oh, there's a super chat that I've missed. And it is Carlos. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate that. No question or anything. Just being here. And Todd's got to go. See you, Todd. Have a great week. I'll get a split soon too, you guys, but gotta get to these different super chats. Is the TC Electronics Sentry really worth it? It's a good gate. Smart Gate is another nice one. The Sentry's a good one. The Sentry worked well for me. I've got one here and I use it occasionally. Yeah. What else we got here? Do you have an IR pack with 2 notes? I do. My Dyne IR package. Mine came out just a little bit after Phil's. Phil's and George Lynch were the first ones, I think. And then mine and Dave Friedman's came out after that. And I really like it, actually. Who is the best pedal brand and why is it Strymon? Strymon is a great pedal brand. They really are. They do a great job. There can be no best, but what else we got here? Let's see. What about the Waza? I've talked about the Waza before. The only thing about the Waza that concerns me is a little bit of the reactive stuff. I'll just say, in my opinion, from what I've been told, basically, you've got those reactive settings on the left that kind of switch up the voicing of the power amp through changing the curves. And in my opinion, you're on the high end one, you're probably pretty cool no matter what. It's the low end one. I wouldn't recommend turning it more than, like, I would leave it all the way left or maybe the second setting, and that's it. If you go beyond that, you're getting into a danger zone for certain amplifiers, and it's very dependent on the design of the individual amplifier and the output transformer and how on the hairy edges they run and that kind of stuff. So just that's the only thing. And I kind of didn't say a lot about it for a while, but it's just something to be aware of. In my opinion, you might be fine. It depends on your amp, but in my opinion, the safest setting would be closest to what an actual speaker cab and amp relationship is like. The impedance curve of basically you've got your amplifier plugged into a cabinet, the amplifier run, all that power is coming out the speaker output into the cabinet, and the speakers are dissipating it as sound, right? That energy. And there's a bit of pushback with the speaker and the output transformer, the amp, and they're working together and all that. If you disrupt that by putting something else like a load box after, you want the load box to basically perform like a cabinet, in my opinion, and so that the amp doesn't think it's plugged into something different, right? If it had a brain. That's the thing. And by using some of those different curves on it's just a little strange, some of the settings. So, but you should be fine with it, just fine, if you run the low one. It's like I don't know if they call it low resonance or peak or something, but if you run the low one to the all the way left setting, or at the most maybe the next one, and what's happening there is you're sort of almost unloading the amp on the below in the resonant peak, the big low peak that happens in the low end, and it's not good to do that entirely. You might like the sound is the problem, but there's a better way to get to the sound that won't, I'm not saying it's going to damage your amp. I'm just saying you're doing something that is, there's certain manufacturers that won't warranty their amp with it and whatnot. And there's a reason why, and that's the reason is, you're kind of doing something that the amplifier might not like if you're turning that resonant all the way up. And it's just good to be aware of that. it's a well-designed unit in many respects that has like a lot of great features. I mean, the whole, the power amp sounds really good. It sounds great reamping. Yeah, so what else? Somebody's suggesting that Fender do a Tone Master Basement. Sure. Oh, there's a super chat. Sorry. I will do all of these, I promise. Can you describe the process for building your tracks for the demo videos? They are creative and melodic. Generally speaking, I plug in the unit that I'm making a video of, and I'll get an idea of what it does. And then I'm pulling up, generally I'm doing that through my DAW already. I've already opened up like a template that I can start a song from. So I'll listen to, say it's a pedal, and I'll go, first thing is, do I want to run this pedal in front, or do I want to run it in the effect loop or after an amp? So I'll ascertain that from the type of pedal that it is. And then I'll start to dial in a sound and go, oh, this is where this sounds. Here's the sound that this makes, or one of the sounds that this makes. Well, cool. And I play and I go, that's a cool part. And then I go, let's get some drums going. And I'll get some drums going, and then I'll generally start to record that part. And that's where it starts, And so, like, I'm making a video for a really cool pedal right now. And I can't tell you what it is, but it's coming out in a little under a week. And you guys are going to be stoked if you're it's exciting. And I'm doing, I just started yesterday, and it's like, oh, there's a cool sound. There's a cool sound. There's a cool sound. And started doing a bunch of stuff. So it's sitting right in front of me. I wish I could show you, but I'm not going to do it. I'll get in trouble. But yeah, it all starts from the sound the thing is making, basically. And then I'll start by coming up with a part, and then that'll start to dictate the other parts and stuff. Generally speaking, it's great if you have a easy, quick way to get things going. This is part of my clinic that I've taught before, and you want to be able to get song ideas flowing quickly. So if you can get a DAW and a recording setup and a flow going with how you record, so that you can get sounds going really quickly, and within 10 minutes of open your computer and your DAW, and you turn on your amp, you dial up a sound, you could actually be recording within like 10 minutes. So if you can figure out a way to do that, put all the puzzle pieces in place to do that, that's good. Not getting in the way of your own creativity then, John with a super chat there. Any great AC30 pedals? Cobble Wobble was a 12 string. Oh, that's cool. Like a big, that's interesting. I didn't even, when I was listening to it yesterday, I wasn't like, oh, that's obviously a 12 string. That's cool. I wonder what kind of 12 string. Was it with? I could hear it being one of those Fender 12s from the 60s or something, but I got to take a listen to it. But yeah, that makes sense now. Like one of those Fender 12s in the middle position or something would probably do it. What else? Any great AC30 pedals? The Ruby from, but it's more of a preamp pedal. It's the full-on modeling thing in a pedal, but it sounds really great. For the AC30 thing. And I did a video on that at Sweetwater, actually, where we kind of go through it and demo it. AC30 into an amp and kind of giving you an AC30 thing. There's only a couple. There's the Wampler that I did videos for years ago. I don't remember the name of, but it was pretty cool. And then there's the Boss. What the heck was it called? Something combo or something. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it was pretty cool. It's just AC30 to me is like, an AC30 is all the stuff. It's like the amp and the speakers and turning it up loud. It's all that, and so to put it in a pedal, it's easier to do a distortion based kind of a preampy, like the Soldano or something. Even that is like, obviously a lot of people are like, well, it doesn't sound like a real amp, but you can get, to me, AC30 is like, it's a combination of the speakers compressing and stuff, right? So how are you going to put that in a pedal? It's like the way the speakers break up and push back, and that combo thing, the way the sound spreads around the room and everything, it's a hard thing to replicate. I guess the speakers is the amp is really unique in its design, compared to other amps. I think the 4EL84 thing, and just the way the preamp sounds and the EQ works, and it's all weird and stuff. But that coupled with that, the cabinet being such a big deal, I'm not really a fan of it's a cool sound, but if you're going for the AC30 thing, like running into a 412 with V30s or something, it's not going to get you an AC30. It could be a great sound, just be different, How can you tell if 2 amps are out of phase? You'll know right when you sit between them, and you got to set the volumes about the same. Move your head to one side, it sounds normal. You come into the middle, and it gets all hollow and sounds like it's very, very small and thin, like an unnatural. And then you move your head to the other side, and now it sounds fat again. Right in the middle, it sounds like you're in the middle of a tunnel or something, and it's just like, what's happening? And then you flip the phase, and it's like, boom, the sound gets all big. It's not hard to miss. So set up 2 amps and make yourself a phase flip speaker cable and plug it in and listen. Either that, or if you've got an AB box from somebody like a big shot, is that the one, or the Twin Bones, I think, from Radial. It should have one, but it should have a phase flip for the one of the outputs, and you can just push that while you're running into 2 amps, like run an ABY with a phase flip on one of the outputs and just push it, and you'll hear, maybe you've been running out of phase for years, and you'll push it and go, oh my God, my sound just got huge. That's funny. Yeah. Running out of phase is, it's funny. A lot of people do it too. It's like, you'll hear like, that's out of phase. I'll never forget doing a gig we were on tour with Marcy Playground, and I was, remember that band, Sex and Candy? They had a song called, and I was with the band Blinker the Star. We were opening for them for a month, and they did their whole sound check, and it was a long sound check. I remember that was like a couple hours, a long time. We're waiting for ours. It was in the 930 Club in Washington, D.C. And we got done. They got done with their sound check. God bless them. And our sound guy got up there and picked up a mic and talked to the PA. Check. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. The whole PA is out of phase. They'd been sound checking for like 2 hours. And my buddy Al, who's great, like legendary, awesome dude. He was just like, yeah, the whole PA's out of phase. Like, I think their sound guy was probably like, and they had to go figure out what was going on. It's like, you can flip the phase in a number of places in a rig. Could be crossovers and on the way to the power amps, and like the different, there's a bunch of different in a stereo PA that the phase could get flipped. So he had to go through and track down what was going on with what was wired to these boxes and these boxes and figure it out. Probably took 45 minutes to suss that out and then put it all back together, and then it was right. But since then, I learned, over the years from incidents like that and listening to him go, okay, what does that mean? What's going on? I was like, okay, yeah, I hear that. It sounds like there's no bass when you're in the middle. Weird of the PA. You're generally cool if you're way over here on the left or way over here on the right, but you get in the middle and it sounds all hollow. And it's kind of weird how often I hear that. And I've had to bring it up. And after he taught me, it was like, something's out of phase in this PA. There's been a number of times where I brought it up. Like, I don't know what's going on, but like, it ain't right. And this, oh yeah. I've brought it up to sound guys before and stuff in similar situations. After that incident, I was like, okay, I need to learn more about this, It's interesting, but important to learn. And it's a hollow sound, and it's a real shitty sound. You don't want to do a gig with Stealth Parrot says out of phase speakers sound off or wrong. It sounds very weird, like just like the sound when you get in. I don't know how to describe it other than it gets very thin and hollow when you're in the middle of an out of phase sound, and it's best to just test it and try it so that you can hear, and know what it is. Have somebody show you, and you'll go, oh God, yeah. Like as soon as you hear it, it's very obvious, and then you'll never forget it, and you'll hear when something's wrong the next time. So important stuff. What cabin speakers do you like the most? I love old greenbacks. So for me, if I had to have one sound, it'd be greenback loaded, old Marshall or something, just a cabinet, a 412. Generally speaking, B cabs. A cabs are cool too, but the B cabs are probably my favorite, even though my main studio cab is an A cab in the other room. But I flip it over so that I'm miking, the mics go on the top, but I flip the cabinet. So now the angled part is on the floor. And then the two big, and why do I do that? Because the depth is greater between the front and the back of the cab. I really got to go. I've been here 2.5 hours now, and I got so much work to do. But here's a thoughts on the Boss Was a tube expander versus the aux. Well, they're different. If I had to have one as a live device, and I was attenuating and kind of reamping, I would say use the tube expander, but keep, as I mentioned earlier, the resonant control all the way to the left. If you want to get more low end, don't do it with that. Do it with EQ, because you've got EQs and stuff in there that you can use. So do that instead, and then you'll be safe. And it's a nice sounding reamp device for sure with their solid state power amp and stuff. So good with the Boss there. Because the aux is, I like it for recording, but I'm not a fan of necessarily the attenuator that's in it. That's the only thing. It's a sort of traditional, it's somewhat resistive and has a, I think, you know, and it's got a kind of a darkening MIDI sort of effect, a little bit like a hot plate or something, the attenuator that's in it. So I'm much more a fan of it as a recording unit. The load is completely separate from the attenuator in it. So as a recording unit, both are good, I think, you know, as long as you're, once again, with the Boss, just the caveat, you know, just keep that resonance control to the left. Do you notice in the Roth time, Eddie played half step down, with Hagar, he played standard? Actually, you know, a lot of, I think 1984 is kind of in standard tuning too. So it's interesting. He was like drifting up, you know, from the early 80s to the mid 80s, the tuning was changing. I don't know why. It's interesting. But isn't Jump in C? I mean, it's like it's standard tuning. I think Panama is standard tuning, I think. Or close, you know, because the whole thing is they used to I mean, the early days, Van Halen 2 is actually somewhere in between E flat and E. A lot of it, if you listen to it, it's out of tune. And it's not BSO, it's like they were tuning the guitar, the bass to the guitar. You know, he would just tune, get in tune, and then Mike had tune to him, and then they'd cut. It's like, well, you're not doing any overdubs now. You try and overdub to that, it's like you got to tune to the track. It's impossible, you know. It's totally impossible. But anyway, it's kind of funny because there's stuff I've heard, like for instance, there's a recording I've heard of the master of it's Mean Street, I think. I think it's Mean Street. Yeah, it is. There is an overdub on it. That so there's another guitar that was cut on it, and it goes throughout the entire song. And so, you know, when you can hear the guitar come in at the end, down, you hear that solo come in at the end. That guitar actually runs throughout the entire song, and it's another part in the other channel. So you know how you've got right? There's another guitar that he actually cut on it that's in the other side. And if you watch some of those Sunset Sound documentaries where they're talking about how he wanted, you know, he was there was a guy, Doug, I think, that said that he called him to come down to the studio and try and convince Ted to, you know, because they were having an argument over parts and stuff. And I would not at all be surprised if this was one of those things, because there's this crazy sounding overdub that like really kind of doesn't work. And it's kind of out of tune is part of what I didn't like about it, but it also just muddies up that groove. You got that, and then he played this other part. I've only heard it once. You know, it's a long story, but I've heard the original master of, you know, what it is, and the part runs through the whole song, and it's like, oh, you know, and that was one of the, you know, those little Ted Templeman things where he's kind of brilliant. I'm like, we don't need that, you know. And it just, you know, when you're making records and stuff, you gotta have that clarity or whatever. And it was like, but then it fades in at the end, and that's where you hear the overdub solo come in and stuff. And it's, so they did use the good stuff. But okay, oh god, there's super chats here like crazy that I didn't get to. I'm sorry, you guys, and then I'm gonna have to split. Let me do these quick. Friedman mentioned your jigging is reworked high watt. Sounds amazing. Would be a good addition to the collection. How good was it? It was amazing. It sounds amazing. And basically he gave an amp that he has to Stevie Fright, who is a big fan of high watts. And I was like, why didn't you do it yourself? He's like, I don't know. Stevie's my friend. He loves them. So I just said, you do what you want to it, because they're friends, you know? So, so he gave it to Stevie, and Stevie did basically whatever he did, values and stuff like that. And it's a high watt PA head, you know, so it's the one with all the channels, but he's converted it to just be a DR basically. DR, 103, right? And it sounds like, yeah, you can jumper, or you can just run the bright channel, and we ran it on 10, like you would an old Marshall Eddie Van Halen style, and it still sounded like into it. We had it into the power station and turned down somewhat, but still turned up good and loud. And it was just like, this sounds amazing. Like this coupled with a Marshall 50 or something like stereo, or split, or even dual mono, would sound just like devastating. So yeah, it was cool, man. It was really, 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 really good sound. Javier says, thank you for the super chat as well. Javier says, how hard am I realistically pushing power section with Thorn Bucker's gain channel with gain at 6, volume at 6, tone stack at new, and master at 4? Well, it depends on the amp, but you're not hurting anything. You're fine. I mean, most amps, it could be any amp you're talking about. I'm not sure what the amp is, but maybe you're talking about a PT15, because it would have all those controls. But let's say you're talking about PT15. It's actually made to run pretty cool, so you're not hurting anything. You're just fine. Sure, you'll need to do power tubes eventually, but that's any amp really. So just be aware that when you're using it, that you're using your tubes and stuff. But it'll be, you can run it like that. Just go ahead and use it like that, and don't be afraid to crank it up and have fun. Oh, Javier, I see there's another super chat for the PT15. You're totally fine running it at 4. John designed the power section to run cool, so that it's reliable. So yeah, you're totally cool, man. No worries. That's like a good. The only thing is with the master up at 6, I will say you're sending pretty hard using the master on the channel out to effects. So if you got anything in the loop, you're hitting it line level hot at that point. So just be aware of, if you got a delay or reverb or something in the loop, you might want to back that master down and then bring up the overall other one, the overall master, to compensate. And you'll actually be probably a little better off with your effects that way, not nailing something in the loop. Because even a line, those masters are designed to be run up to about, you can put them at 6, but it's like you're better off running it, say, at 5 max, and then just compensate by turning up the other one a little more. Turn it up to 5 if you want to. The overall master. I'm in Honduras, don't have the chance to try mini amps. Which would I recommend for classic Van Halen? Germino, Sir, Bray, Cruise, Marshall. It just depends your budget and everything. The Sir is great because you can do the Variac thing built in. So I got to recommend that SL67 or 68, because that's a part of the sound. I run my 68 Variac mode all the time. It just sounds great. It just lowers the volume a little. It's got a little more of the gush. It sounds like bright. So if you want Van Halen, you want that. But you can always get a Variac, bias the amp for Variac, and do it different ways. Germino makes great amps. Bray I haven't tried, but I'm about to actually to get to play through one. So I've always wondered what they're like. Marshall, good stuff. Not they need some tweaks to be just right to me. The little SV20 is a great budget thing. If you want to get a good plexi sound, not too much money and not too much volume, it's a cool little thing. It's not as legit as an SL68 or something, but they sound great. Really, they're good. Peter Evans, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Coming in late videos this week. Yes, I will have a video for a very cool pedal coming this week, but I can't tell you what it is. So it'll just be one video this week, because I got to go out to rock with out in the desert with some famous dudes. It'll be fun. Okay, I think that's it for super chats. I think I got them all. If I didn't, I sincerely apologize, and that wasn't my intention. But I think I did do them all. And you guys are the best. I'll see you next week. I will have done the Plaza gig by then, and I'll give you a little recap of how that went and everything. Hopefully it'll be good stories, and I won't be ashamed of making mistakes or something. Everybody take care. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time. Rock on.